Chapter 1057. Founders of Mazeroth. As in the realm of gods before him stood the most mesmerizing woman he had ever seen, surpassing even the beauty of Gaia and Layla Alden. Yet, despite her alluring appearance, Michael remained composed and unaffected, surprising Marley. As she moved closer, he simply conjured robes to cover her and addressed her calmly. "Pleasure to meet you, Goddess Marley, I presume," Michael said, his demeanor unwavering. Marley's attempts at seduction seemed to have no effect on him, which only seemed to fuel her desire for him. She couldn't resist moving closer, her breath hot on his skin, and her intoxicating fragrance filling the air. However, Michael gently stepped back, holding up his hand to reveal a wedding ring. "You're a bit late for the seduction game, Marley. I am already married," he said, showing no hint of temptation. Marley felt a tinge of disappointment, but her desire for him remained unyielding. "Let's not waste our time and discuss how you can help me reach the divine portals," Michael straightforwardly asked Marley. In a seductive tone, Marley countered, "What do I get in return?" "The rarest jewel of all, my friendship," Michael confidently replied. Unfazed, Marley pushed further, "What if I said I want all of you or none of you?" Michael couldn't help but snicker at her proposition. He exuded an air of arrogance backed by formidable power, which only seemed to draw her closer to him. There was an undeniable magnetism about him that piqued her interest like no other god she had encountered. Unperturbed, Michael replied, "Then I will leave this forest and find my own way. Trust me, I'm no stranger to surviving in a new world all on my own. I've done it before and I can do it again. But do you really want to be on my bad side?" As a god, fear was an alien emotion to Michael, and he certainly felt none towards Marley. Though he sensed that she was a god of higher power, he remained composed and unafraid. Unexpectedly, Michael reached out and pulled her closer, his hand wrapped around her waist. "We both know there's something that draws you to me as much as I'm drawn to you. So let's cut the pretense and discuss how we can help each other," he said coldly before releasing her. Marley moaned with delight, taking pleasure in asserting her dominance over him. Michael now understood why Nithrol had warned him not to get too close to Marley. "So you seek my help in finding the divine portals. Let me guess, she also told you to go to Nimbosia first and witness the atrocities of Raynar, the god of rain?" Marley said, amusement lacing her voice. Curious, Michael pointed to the tree-shaped medallion hanging around his neck. "She gave me this medallion to suppress my god aura and hide my presence from the other gods. But you claim you forged it. What's your connection with Nithrol?" "Let's take a walk through my domain and talk," Marley gestured, leading Michael beside her. The forest came alive as the fauna and vegetation gracefully moved aside to make way for them. In this part of the world, the divine portals are rare. There is one in the desert of Vikan, but you'll have to fight through monsters and ugly creatures roaming the desert. If they don't get you, the desert dwellers will, Marley warned. "As a god, I believe I can handle a few monsters and whatever these dwellers are," Michael confidently asserted. Marley chuckled, amused by his naive bravado. "Honey, this world is not very different from the one you came from. The people here are unaware of the existence of the world below them. The fortunate mortals who manage to break through the celestial stage end up here, but their memories and powers are stripped away. They either become worshippers to the first god they encounter or go mad. A handful retain their memories, but they always strike some kind of deal with a god." Marley explained the intricacies of the realm of gods. "My point is, dear, only a god will recognize another god. However, since you're wearing my medallion, they will see you as nothing more than a commoner in this world. But don't let being a god get to your head. There are creatures here that can take down even a god and consume their soul. Some of these creatures have lived here longer than any god," she warned as Michael calmly walked beside her, attentively listening to her words. "Besides, if you use your god powers too much, the Pantheon will sense you and find you, regardless of whether you wear my medallion or not. The medallion is for you to keep safe while you learn about this world and build your worshippers. The more devotees you have, the more power you will gain," said Marley. But with the system and the dark seeds, he kinda didn't need worshippers to level up his godhood. Yet, he had a feeling things might not be as simple as he thought. "But won't building too many worshippers draw the Pantheon's attention?" Michael asked. "It certainly will. Did you expect your life to be easier here? That's why Nithrol prefers the mortal realm over the realm she was born in," Marley chuckled. "Things are simple in the mortal realm, but here, everything is complex and messy, thanks to the Pantheon. Now, let me tell you something that will complicate things even further for you. Since I assume you won't join a Pantheon, you won't get your own kingdom. So, you have to poach worshippers from other gods. Trust me when I say this, gods do not like it when their worshippers are taken away. Piss them off too much and they will send their angels to smite you, Marley warned Michael, relishing in the challenge she presented to him. But luckily for you, there is an opportunity you can exploit. The Thunder God and Rain God are not on friendly terms. If one of them were to die, you could potentially claim their kingdom if you plan your moves right. However, it will draw the attention of the Pantheon. So whatever you do, it's impossible for you to survive here without crossing paths with the Pantheon. My suggestion to you is to draw their attention and strike some kind of deal. They are all too focused on Dagon, so they might be willing to bring you to their side. Desperate times call for desperate measures, honey, Marley advised, enjoying the thrill of revealing the complexities of the realm of gods to Michael. Marley suggested that Michael work with the Pantheon rather than against them. However, she had no idea about his true plans to ally himself with Dagon and fight against the Pantheon. As he listened to her explain the complexities of the world, Michael began to consider the idea of working with the Pantheon, at least for the time being. I don't think the Pantheon will welcome me with open arms, Marley. Apparently, the god of time and space has a bone to pick with me. And your god of war crashed my wedding, Michael said, watching Marla's reaction closely. As soon as she heard the name God of War, her face drained of color and she trembled in fear. You seem to have pissed off two of the most powerful gods in the Pantheon. How did you do that? Asked Marley, clearly taken aback by the revelation. Michael chose not to reveal too much and pretended to have no idea about the reasons behind the god's enmity towards him. He didn't want to give away too many details to Marley, as he was still uncertain about her true intentions and allegiances. I don't know, Michael shrugged in response to Marla's question about Rudra's actions. But it's weird. Rudra doesn't just attack other gods on a whim. He's usually a pretty chill guy. If he decided to do what you said, he must have had a pretty good reason. Damn, I hate thinking too much. This is why I stay as far as possible from the Pantheon and their bloody politics. Marley pouted, clearly frustrated with the complexities of the godly world. As they continued walking through the forest, the silence between them lingered for a few moments before Marley finally spoke up. You can spend the night in my forest and we can talk more about this world, she offered. Thank you for your hospitality. But I need to ask you something. Why are you helping me? Michael inquired. Because I need your help, obviously. I told you about the war between the Rain God and the Thunder God. Many of my worshippers are getting caught in the middle, and they both don't care about the worshippers of another god. Since I cannot leave my domain, I want you to find a way to bring my worshippers here, Marley explained her reasons. And why can't you leave your domain? Michael asked curiously. Not just me, honey. No god who has a kingdom can leave their domain. You'll have to ask the Pantheon why, Marley responded with a hint of mystery in her voice. The sudden revelation that no god could leave their domains opened up a world of possibilities for Michael to exploit. If he could somehow kill a god, there wouldn't be interference from another god. But to achieve such a feat, he needed to learn more about the god-killing arrows. Have you ever heard of the people who discovered Mazroth? If you know Mazroth in the mortal realm, that is? Michael asked Marley. But when Marley heard his question, she burst into laughter. I know them very well. They are no longer just people, darling. They are gods here and serve the Pantheon, Marley said, surprising Michael with this unexpected twist. When did everyone become a god? I have the worst luck in the entire universe, Michael sighed inside. Chapter 1058 The Worshippers of the God of Darkness. Honey, they've been serving the Pantheon for thousands of years. No wonder they were made into gods, Marley remarked as she licked her wrist, conjuring a camp. With a flick of her wrist, several logs flew toward the campfire and landed neatly. Michael settled onto a log facing Marley. I thought you cannot turn someone into gods, Michael said. We all thought so. Life is full of surprises, especially when it comes to the Pantheon. Speaking of making gods, that's one of the reasons why Dagon rebelled against the Pantheon, Marley explained. At the mention of Dagon's name, Michael's curiosity was piqued. He wanted to learn more about why a god like Dagon was banished from the realm of gods and relegated to ruling over hell. What do you mean? Michael inquired. Surprisingly, Vidora curled into his inner pocket and fell asleep. Dagon was always curious and an old god. Many gods don't know the truth. What I do know is that he started asking the Pantheon too many questions about their origins, their powers, and their creator, Marley elaborated. I believe it triggered the conflict between the Pantheon and Dagon. To know more, you'd have to ask either the Pantheon or Dagon himself, Marley chuckled as if making a jest. But seeing the chilling expression on Michael's face, her smile faltered. I was joking. Never try to involve yourself with Dagon, Marley cautioned Michael, her fear palpable in her eyes and words. This only fueled Michael's curiosity further. If he was to align himself with Dagon against the Pantheon, he needed to learn more about him. From what I've heard from you, Dagon didn't seem like a villain. There must be more to the story, Michael remarked. Dagon is not the good guy in the story, darling. He slaughtered millions of devotees of other gods, mainly those in the Pantheon and their angels. He razed places where the Pantheon held dominion, causing countless deaths. His thirst for knowledge and hatred for the Pantheon turned rivers of this world into streams of blood, Marley explained. Michael absorbed her words silently, then pressed further with another question. You mentioned that if one of the rain god or thunder god were to die, I could potentially take over their kingdoms. How does a god die? Specifically, how can a god be killed? Marley responded with a chuckle to his inquiry. Honey, that's a question nobody can truly answer. No one has witnessed a god's death or how one can be killed. Legends and tales speak of ancient monsters capable of devouring a god's soul, but we've never seen a god die. Not since I've been around, and believe me, that's quite a long time. But I do believe that anyone can be killed if the assailant is skilled enough, Marley said, her smile containing a hint of intrigue as if she had sensed a killer within Michael. The reason I mentioned Raynar or Cronar potentially dying is that I have a sense you're exploring ways to slay a god. Your devotees, even though they are few and hunted by many, believe that only you, the god of darkness, possess the ability to bring down a god. Fortunately, the Pantheon doesn't seem to be putting too much stock in that belief. Otherwise, you'd be at the top of their hit list alongside Dagon, Marley explained. I have worshippers? Michael was taken aback by the revelation. Yes. Somehow, some of your temples have managed to stand despite the Pantheon's influence, Marley said. Her limited knowledge of the previous Dark Lord and her confined access to the outer world of the realm of gods meant she wasn't familiar with the history of the previous god of darkness. Now that you're here, you'll likely start hearing prayers directed your way, Marley added. As Michael processed everything Marley had shared about the gods and the realm of gods, a thoughtful silence settled between them. But before you embark on your godly pursuits, I need your assistance to save my worshippers. Do we have a deal? Marley inquired. With a resigned sigh, Michael nodded. It's a deal. But to reach Nimbosia, I still require your guidance to locate a divine portal, Michael stated. As I mentioned earlier, the nearest portal is in the Viken Desert, within the Temple of Hayathi. Yet, reaching the portal won't be straightforward. But I have full faith in your abilities to locate it, Marley assured, causing a faint smile to grace Michael's lips. I can fight my way to the portal, but how am I supposed to ensure the safe passage of your worshippers through the same portal? Michael voiced his concern. Battling monsters and opponents was one thing, but safeguarding innocent lives was another matter entirely. That's something you don't need to worry about. Among my followers, there's an individual who possesses an artifact granted by me. This artifact enables her to utilize the portal within Nimbosia to travel here. Locate her, and your task will be much simpler, Marley explained. Beneath her initial facade of a lustful deity, Michael was beginning to glimpse a compassionate and considerate goddess. Nithrol's counsel to seek Marley's assistance had proven wise. However, Michael sensed there might be a history shared between Nithrol and Marley, a story he felt wasn't appropriate to delve into at the moment. Rest now. You can set off for the Viken Desert as soon as tomorrow, Marley suggested, her demeanor shifting. The warm and benevolent goddess he had seen earlier was replaced by her previous allure and desire towards him. Yet, Michael merely smiled and settled down on the ground. Would you like a view? Marley inquired playfully. With a wave of her hand, the canopy above them shifted, revealing a night sky adorned with countless stars. As Michael lay beneath the starry sky, his eyes closed and he began drifting into slumber. Within his dreams, faint whispers grew louder, chanting, "May the god of darkness embrace us." He found himself in a shadowy realm, surrounded by figures cloaked in absorbing darkness. They encircled a powerful stone statue resembling him, in a room adorned with pulsating symbols. The chant intensified, summoning his godhood with reverence and longing. Michael felt a connection to these worshippers, united by an unseen thread. Gradually, the dream's edges blurred, figures fading, and the room contracting until only the chant remained. Then, like a fading whisper, the dream dissolved, leaving him in tranquil slumber. Amidst his dreams, Michael heard a persistent call, "Wake up," from Iag. The soft nudging of Vidora's heads against his face accompanied the summons. Gradually, the dream world gave way to the gentle embrace of reality. The morning greeted him with the melodic chirping of birds and the soothing caress of a calm breeze. As his eyelids fluttered open, he was met with the gentle warmth of the rising sun on his face. The world slowly came into focus, and his gaze met Vidora's watchful eyes fixed upon him. "You're awake," Michael heard Marla's voice and rose from the ground. Vidora swiftly hopped back onto Michael's shoulder, readying themselves for the journey to the Vikan Desert. "If you set out now, you should reach the Vikan Desert by nightfall. But wait at the desert's edge until sunrise before venturing further. In other words, avoid traveling through the desert during the night," Marley cautioned with a serious tone. "Why?" Ayag inquired. "You'll understand once you witness the monsters that roam the desert at night," Marley replied succinctly. "But remember what I told you. Don't use your godly powers excessively, it'll alert the Pantheon. Rely on your swords in battle," Marley advised. "You mentioned these monsters can even devour a god. So how are we supposed to fight them with just swords?" Ayag retorted, his tone laden with skepticism. "Figure it out, genius. Unless you want the Pantheon breathing down your neck, follow my advice," Marley retorted with a sly smirk. "He'll handle it," Michael interjected before an argument could ignite between Ayag and Marley. "Good. Now go," Marley gestured for them to depart. "N0 Velus B. C0 Mas." Michael took a step forward. Marley lightly tapped her forehead and conjured a golden parchment with a flick of her wrist. "This parchment contains a map detailing the journey from here to the Vikan Desert. Use it wisely." Marley tossed the map to Michael, then moved forward to kiss him on the cheek. "Back off." Michael was taken aback as all three heads of Vidora, Kane, Sarba, and Ayag hissed at Marley in unison when she kissed him. "You're not getting close to Gaia's man," Ayag hissed, their fierce loyalty to Gaia, Michael's wife, evident in their protective stance. "He'll catch up with you later." Michael brushed aside the confrontation and began ascending into the sky. As Michael ascended higher into the sky, Marla's figure gradually grew smaller and smaller, eventually blending into the landscape below. With a determined focus, Michael propelled himself forward, slicing through the air with newfound speed. The wind rushed past him, carrying the distant echoes of Marla's words and the memories of their conversation. Following the guidance of the map Marley had given him, Michael dashed forward through the vast expanse of the sky. His destination lay in the distant horizon, the treacherous Vikan Desert. The golden parchment in his hand provided a roadmap for his journey, outlining the twists and turns that would lead him to his destination. Beneath him, the forest he had spent the night in began to shrink, gradually fading from view as he soared higher. The once lush canopy gave way to the open sky, and the vibrant greenery vanished, leaving behind only the endless stretch of blue above and the earth below. After 2 days of continuous flight, the expanse of the Vikan Desert finally came into view beneath the darkened night sky. Michael's eyes fixed on the seemingly tranquil desert landscape on the horizon. The vast stretch of sand and dunes appeared deceptively calm from a distance, but a sense of unease began to creep in. "Does anyone else have a foreboding feeling about this desert?" Sarba's cautious question broke the silence as they approached the desert. Michael gradually reduced his speed, gliding closer to the desert's edge. The sand seemed to shift like a constantly moving canvas, with ripples and waves forming intricate patterns under the night sky. The air was cool and carried a hint of sand, a testament to the desert's harsh environment. The starlit sky stretched above, providing a stark contrast to the arid desert below. Despite its serene appearance, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this desert than met the eye. As he drew nearer, the sense of unease only deepened, reminding him that appearances could be deceiving. Approaching the desert's edge, Michael was suddenly confronted by an unimaginable sight. Emerging from the sands with a thunderous roar, a colossal creature reared its head, a nightmarish embodiment of terror. This behemoth resembled an immense centipede, its segmented body extending far into the desert. The moonlight illuminated its scales, casting an eerie glow across its hide. The creature's roar resonated through the silent desert, sending shivers down Michael's spine. Its sheer enormity left him feeling insignificant in its shadow. The centipede-like monster's scales shimmered like burnished metal under the starry sky, reflecting glimmers of moonlight. Each segment of its body was adorned with sharp, glistening spines that seemed capable of tearing through anything that dared to challenge it. Its many legs undulated with a disturbing fluidity as it moved, kicking up swirls of sand in its wake. The creature's eyes glowed with an otherworldly intensity, fixated on Michael and his companions as they hovered above the desert floor. The realization struck Michael with a jolt. This was undoubtedly the reason Marley had cautioned against traversing the desert at night. The monstrous centipede before them was a testament to the dangers within the seemingly tranquil landscape. What in the holy hell is that? Sarba's voice trembled with shock. Chapter 1059 The Goddess of All Monsters Standing beside a withered tree at the desert's edge, Michael swiftly retrieved a handful of drones from his space ring. With a command, the drones whirred to life, taking flight and venturing into the depths of the desert. Their tiny forms buzzed against the strong desert winds, disappearing into the vast expanse to gather information. The recent encounter with the colossal centipede monster left Michael still reeling, his thoughts momentarily dazed by the sheer magnitude of the creature. It was the second time he had encountered such an immense monster, the first being the colossal bull within the demon's grave. Sarba's voice crackled over the communication channel as he reported, "I can't detect any discernible energy radiation from that creature." Iag echoed the sentiment, adding, "Same here, there's nothing registering on my radar." Turning to the source of his guidance, Michael queried the system for assistance, his use of the system's abilities now more judicious considering his dwindling amount of badass points. He had spent a significant portion to arrive in the realm of gods. "Is there a way to gauge the power level of that monster?" he asked. The system's reply was immediate. The system can provide a device for power level estimation for a cost of 400,000 badass points. Michael weighed his options. "You can, but I want to assess if the creature is stronger than me or not." The system interjected with caution. "While the system's main priority is your safety, engaging with a monster of that magnitude could trigger the use of your powers. It's advisable to avoid using them, as the Pantheon could detect you once they're activated. It's recommended to hold off on using your powers until you're more capable." "Speaking of growing stronger, I need 2 more dark seeds to advance to level 3 godhood, correct?" Michael inquired. "That is correct," the system confirmed. The system outlined that to reach godhood level 3, Michael required 3 seeds of darkness, and 4 to attain level 4. Beyond level 5, his progression would involve specific tasks and locating potent artifacts, a relatively straightforward path compared to other gods, who often remain stagnant in their godhood level due to unattainable challenges. While Michael engaged in this internal conversation with the system, his attention was drawn to a curious sight. Within the desolate landscape, he spotted several cloaked figures stealthily taking cover amidst the ruins of a structure, concealed within the heart of the desert. Michael quickly zoomed in on the figures using the tablet he held in his hand. Vidora's multiple heads leaned in closer, examining the feed from the drones. "Desert dwellers?" Iag questioned, his tone laced with curiosity. "N0V C0M, it appears so," Michael replied, his eyes fixed on the images. "Why would they be in a place like this?" Sarba pondered aloud. Kane, another of Vidora's heads, chimed in with a more pressing concern. "Perhaps the question should be how they're surviving the desert's monsters during the night." One of the figures within the drone feed broke away from the group, seemingly to relieve himself. Cloaked in robes that concealed their identities and goggles to shield their eyes from the abrasive sand, they moved with cautious familiarity. The man ventured outside the shelter of the ruin, his gaze inadvertently falling upon the colossal centipede monster, the Sand Emperor, seemingly drilling into the sand without much concern. "Are you sure this is the right place for the deal, Gadden? We've been waiting here for days and I'm getting tired of this endless sand," the man muttered as he attended to his business. Listening intently to the conversation, Michael's curiosity deepened. The dialogue hinted at some kind of transaction, a deal in progress and a mysterious artifact involved. The mention of angels that served gods, added a layer of complexity to the situation. "That's what Raynar's angel informed us. Once we secure the artifact, we're supposed to hand it over to the angel for payment," another man replied. "What comes next after that?" the man outside the ruin inquired. "I can't say for certain. Maybe Raynar's angels plan to use the artifact to eliminate Croner's angels and put an end to their ongoing conflict," the speaker responded, his annoyance at the situation evident. "Ease up on the war, Gadden. Wars are profitable, especially when they're gods fighting each other," the man outside the ruin chuckled. Gadan's voice held a mixture of frustration and fear as he added, "I know, but I despise dealing with those angels. They give me the creeps. Besides, they always choose death traps like this to conduct their business." The conversation among the figures left Michael with even more questions. The enigmatic artifact, the angels serving gods, and the intricate dynamics of their dealings intrigued him. "I'm heading to Oceania after this mission, hoping Lord Ethos blesses me with a safe voyage to my homeland," Gadden mentioned, revealing his future plans. Michael's attention was riveted to the group as he continued to observe them through the drone's camera feed. A small, glimmering object caught his eye, hanging around their necks like a pendant. "Hey, what's that glow?" Kane inquired, his sharp sight picking up on the unusual radiance. Michael swiftly took control of the drone, guiding its mechanical arms to extend from its body. With focused intent, he directed the drone in a lightning-fast descent, deftly snatching the glowing object from around the man's neck. A shout of surprise erupted from the man who felt the sudden tug, his panic fueled by the sand-filled gusts of wind obscuring his vision. Unaware of the drone's presence, he scrambled in confusion. "Gadden, I lost the protection," the man cried out, his voice a mix of panic and shock. The group sprang into action, spurred by the urgency in their comrade's voice. "What?" Gadden's exclamation was a mix of disbelief and concern. "Ichel," the man's plea was abruptly silenced, a chilling scene unfolding before Michael's eyes. Through the drone's lens, he witnessed the colossal Sand Emperor surge from the desert floor, obliterating the ruin in its path. The unfortunate man who had lost his protection charm was consumed by the Sand Emperor's gaping maw, and the structure crumbled as the beast emerged. The Sand Emperor's roars reverberated through the air as it plunged back into the sand, only to erupt forth once more in a relentless sequence. The ruin's remnants were devoured, and the beast's tumultuous movements created a swirling vortex of sand, a testament to its wrath. Alarmed by the unfolding chaos, Michael skillfully maneuvered the drone away from the Sand Emperor's fury, ensuring its safety. "Unbelievable," Iag gasped, his astonishment evident. "They were relying on that charm for protection from the monster," Sarba deduced, understanding the significance of the glowing pendant. A touch of empathy welled up within Michael as he mused, "I can't help but feel a bit sorry for them." Iag's response was more callous, reflecting his perspective. "Nah. Seems like these guys were bandits of this world. In my opinion, we just did this realm a favor." With the drone safely back in his control, Michael inspected the retrieved item closely. Suspended from the silver chain was a pendant fashioned in the shape of an eagle, its intricacies catching the light. "I'm sensing strong energy radiation from this pendant," Sarba remarked. "System, scan this pendant," Michael instructed the system. "The system is unable to complete the task without the purchase of a skill for artifact analysis, costing 500,000 badass points," the system replied. "Buy it," Michael decided promptly. In this new world without Gaia or Lord information, he needed the skill for artifact analysis. A pang of discomfort surged through his brain as the new skill, Analyzer Utility Function, was etched into his consciousness. Congratulations to the host for acquiring Analyzer Utility Function. Scanning initiated. A peculiar dark mist enveloped the pendant's chain, visible only to Michael's eyes. The item is a custom-made pendant containing a trace amount of grace. It possesses the capability to generate a protective barrier around the wearer, specifically effective against monsters and certain creatures in specific biomes. The system conveyed after analyzing the item. With this information, Michael tapped his armor twice, revealing a small compartment. Carefully, he placed the chain within the compartment, securing it around his neck. He wanted to avoid the risk of losing the pendant to an unexpected encounter, which could trigger the Sand Emperor's attention. "What on earth are you up to?" Ag questioned. "This pendant seems to have the power to ward off the Sand Emperor," Michael answered. Stepping forward, he prepared to ascend into the sky, but his intentions were promptly thwarted by Iag and Sarba. Wait. First, are you sure? Second, don't we need it?" Iag interjected, expressing his concerns. "Let's put it to the test," Michael responded with a chuckle, though his antics prompted Vidora's protests. "Bastard, don't toy with our lives," Iag chastised, quickly lowering her voice to a whisper, fearful that their words might carry to the Sand Emperor's ears. With the reassurance of the protective barrier from the pendant, Michael confidently pressed forward, his armor now concealed beneath a long brown coat and jacket. Vidora nestled safely within his inner robe pocket. Whoever crafted this chain must possess considerable power. Even Marley wasn't aware of its capabilities, Michael whispered to Vidora. "Shoo, keep your voice down," Sarba cautioned. Michael's teasing continued, aimed at Vidora's caution. "Look at you three, a mighty hydra cowering in fear of a centipede. We're not at full power yet, you jerk. We're not foolish enough to take on such a colossal monster," Iag retorted with a growl. "Enough complaining, Iag. This item envelopes me in a barrier, protecting us from the Sand Emperor's senses," Michael explained. As he soared through the sky, Michael observed the Sand Emperor repeatedly emerging from the desert's depths and retreating back into the sand. Its presence remained oblivious to Michael, just as the system's scan had predicted. During his flight, he noticed a marble temple rising from the desert. What's that? Iag peered out, spotting the temple. Could that be where the divine portal is? Sarba questioned. Unless the map's wrong, this isn't where the divine portal should be, Michael replied. We should investigate inside, Iag suggested to Michael. Why not? Michael shrugged, redirecting his course toward the temple. Within minutes, Michael reached the temple's entrance and stepped inside cautiously. As he ventured further, his attention was captivated by a statue portraying a figure with the upper body of a woman and the lower body of a serpent. Gazing at the statue's face, Michael found himself stunned. Gaia? He uttered in disbelief, having no idea that he had stumbled upon the temple of Gaia, the goddess of all monsters. Chapter 1060. Someone from Earth? Alright, that statue does resemble Gaia, but what kind of temple is this? Iag asked, his curiosity piqued by the statue's likeness to the goddess. With cautious steps, Michael entered the temple, taking in the flickering candlelight that cast an eerie glow over the space. Despite the darkness, the temple appeared immaculately maintained. Who leaves flowers here? Michael mused aloud, plucking a lotus blossom from where it lay at the statue's feet. Search the area, see if we can find any information about this temple, Kane suggested, Vidora's three heads swiveling to scan the surroundings. Over there, Sarba suddenly pointed out, his gaze fixed on a wooden plank affixed to the temple wall. Curious, Michael approached the plank and read its inscription aloud, his surprise evident in his tone. This is the temple of the goddess of all monsters. Pray to her for great goddess Gaia's protection from all monsters. It seems the previous Gaia had her temples scattered across this realm, Michael speculated. As he spoke, Michael activated his X-ray vision, scanning the temple for concealed doors or mechanisms. During his search, he noticed a small recess at the base of the statue. Returning to where he had plucked the flower, he squatted down. Michael pressed his hand onto the statue's base, seeking some hidden mechanism or reaction. Iag, Sarba, and Kane observed with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. What's your plan? Iag inquired. I sense something inside, Michael replied, his tone indicating his focus. Then break it open, Iag suggested matter-of-factly. When has that ever worked? Sarba chimed in, his tone slightly exasperated. Taking a closer look, Michael discovered a small hole in the statue's base. The hole was almost concealed beneath accumulated sand and dust. After blowing away the debris, he carefully inserted his finger into the opening. Sticking your finger into an unknown hole? Great idea, Iag quipped sarcastically. Amid the banter, Michael suddenly let out a shout. Ouch! Iag's eyes widened in surprise, almost jumping at the sudden exclamation. But her shock turned into annoyance as she realized Michael was laughing at her reaction. Why are you being such a jerk? She growled, angrily nipping at Michael's ear. However, Michael's laughter subsided as he felt a sharp sting on his finger, akin to a needle prick. A drop of his blood fell into the opening, prompting a slight tremor beneath the statue. A portion of the ground slid aside, revealing a worn parchment. What's this? Michael wondered, brushing away the dust before carefully unfolding the parchment. If you're reading this letter, you've stumbled upon one of the hidden letters we placed in the temples of Gaia. We must confess this is just an elaborate prank. We were dreadfully bored while constructing this temple, so we decided to amuse ourselves by creating a secret chamber and leaving this note. There are more of our letters scattered throughout the realm. Collect them all and you'll have quite the tale to tell. Cheers. Michael read aloud, his voice a mix of disbelief and amusement. As Michael finished reading the letter, Iag's frustration was palpable in her words. Seriously, everyone in this world seems like an asshole or a jerk. What a waste of time. I actually thought we'd find something meaningful here, Iag grumbled in annoyance. Meanwhile, Vidora noticed Michael's unwavering gaze on the letter, his brows furrowed in thought. He seems to have found something we didn't, observed Sarba, waiting for Michael to explain. Michael's attention was fixed on the letter as he spoke up, revealing his findings. This letter, it's made to look ancient, but it isn't. It was placed here about 3 years ago, give or take, Michael revealed after analyzing the letter with his newly acquired skill. What's even more intriguing is that this letter contains Morse code, Michael continued. What's Morse code? Iag inquired. It's a method of communication that uses combinations of dots and dashes to represent letters, numbers, and symbols. Dots are short signals while dashes are longer ones. Each character is encoded using a unique combination of these dots and dashes, forming a message. Kane explained the concept, his knowledge surprising both Iag and Sarba. Where did you learn this? Sarba asked Kane. During the time you two were asleep, arguing about who would win in a fight between Trista and Lenora, Kane shared with a hint of amusement. You're such a nerd, Iag couldn't help but chuckle. Okay, so you're saying there might be a hidden message in this? So what does it say? Sarba redirected the conversation before it could turn into another Iag-Kane banter. It decodes to get to the God of Darkness Temple in Misty Swamp. Michael unveiled the true message hidden within the code. Unless someone suddenly became a Morse code expert in this world, the person who left this message is likely from Earth. Michael's tone turned serious. While he had met Hunter from Earth, he was in a different universe entirely, and he wasn't one to leave cryptic messages. Let's focus on rescuing Marlis worshippers first, and then we can head to the Misty Swamp, Michael concluded, rising to his feet, ready to leave the temple. Just as Michael was about to step outside the temple, a sudden rush of 5 men entered, catching his attention. These newcomers were dwarves, characterized by their stocky builds, long beards and battle axes slung across their backs. Look who we've got here, announced the leading dwarf, his face adorned with a scar that ran across his cheek. He pointed a grubby finger in Michael's direction. Michael surveyed them, his gaze lingering on the protective chains around their necks. He couldn't help but notice the familiarity of those chains. Have we crossed paths before? Michael inquired, though his eyes betrayed a hint of wariness. Never met, but you sure managed to make someone real mad. They put quite the bounty on your head, growled the dwarf leader, his tone oozing hostility. Michael was taken aback. After all, he had only arrived in this world a day ago. Trust me, I know if I made someone that mad. I think you've got the wrong guy, Michael calmly responded, seeking to defuse the situation. Nah, we're pretty sure. You're a human, not exactly easy on the eyes, and you've got a Hydra as your buddy, the leader dwarf chuckled. Hey, there you go, admitting I'm not ugly, Michael quipped. Wait, are you guys not surprised to see a Hydra? Iag interjected, her voice tinged with confusion. Not really. We've seen those scholar types bring back all sorts of endangered species. Another dwarf who wore glasses chimed in matter-of-factly. And Zero Velisp. See Zero M bring back? Iag's astonishment was palpable, yet the thought of someone attempting to artificially create her noble race stirred both hope and anger within her. Listen dwarves, I'm not really in the mood for games right now. Normally I might just give you a good beating because you all look kinda cute. But today I'm in the mood for some bloodshed. So tell me who put that bounty on my head and get out of my sight. Michael issued his ultimatum, granting the dwarves an opportunity to retreat, even though he suspected they wouldn't take it. In their eyes, Michael didn't exude the aura of a god, thanks to Nithrol's medallion he wore. Seeing Michael as an easy target, the dwarves believed they could overpower and eliminate him without much effort. Did you just call us cute? Another dwarf bellowed, fueled by anger. My apologies for my friend's rudeness. Instead of cute, he should have used the term motherfucking ugly, Iag retorted, her words striking a nerve and igniting the dwarf's fury. You're going to regret this, creature. Well, cut you down and feed your remains to the monsters out there, the leader dwarf threatened, his voice dripping with malice. Wow, that's your best retort? You might want to work on your comebacks. Learning is growing up, Sarba mocked, clearly unimpressed. That's ice cold. Growing up, he says, haha. Iag erupted in laughter, taunting the dwarves for their stature. Kill them. The dwarves, unable to contain their rage any longer, charged at Michael with their battle axes raised high. Yet, as the leader dwarf closed in, Michael remained composed. With a deliberate motion, he activated the potion-spraying mechanism on his palm, releasing a paralyzing mist into the air. The leader dwarf unwittingly inhaled the mist and promptly froze in place, collapsing to the ground like a lifeless statue. Air rendering the dwarves immobile one by one. With the dwarves now paralyzed, Michael approached Dogu. The other dwarves cried out, but their cries fell on deaf ears. Michael continued to disperse the paralyzing potion into the air, rendering the dwarves immobile one by one. With the dwarves now paralyzed, Michael approached Dogu, the leader of the group, and effortlessly lifted him by the neck. The dwarf was powerless to move save for his eyes. Securing Dogu in one hand, Michael's other hand extended, a needle emerging from his palm. The needle found its mark in the dwarf's mouth, injecting an antidote that would restore his ability to speak, albeit temporarily. What the heck did you do? The dwarf's voice was a mixture of rage and astonishment. I'll be the one asking questions here. If you don't answer, I'll remove this. Michael's fingers played with the silver chain, his tone resolute. No, 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 please. The dwarf's panic was palpable. He understood that removing the chain would expose them to the Sand Emperor's danger. Who placed the bounty on my head? Michael's inquiry was sharp. How would we know? We just came across a poster with your description and whereabouts, the dwarf responded. Where did you come across this poster? Michael probed further. Birmian City, came the dwarf's answer. Where's that? Iag's voice chimed in. The dwarf appeared somewhat bewildered by the question. After all, Birmian City was the sole settlement in the Viken Desert. It stood at the desert's edge, safeguarded from the monster-infested regions. North from here, the dwarf replied. While Michael continued his questioning, his sharp eyes caught a glimmer on one of the buttons adorning the dwarf's leather armor. Picking up the button, he discerned tiny, nearly invisible runes etched onto it. A hidden camera? Michael's surprise was evident. Once again he was caught off guard by the presence of concealed surveillance. Lifting the button to his face, he addressed the camera directly. To whoever's watching, know this, I'm coming for you. With that, he crushed the camera, his analyzer confirming that the feed source couldn't be traced. Chapter 1061 Angels of the Gods, what are you gonna do? Dogu, the dwarf leader, questioned Michael, his tone a mix of defiance and curiosity. Michael offered no response to Dogu's inquiry. Instead, he unceremoniously tossed the dwarf outside, treating the others with similar disdain, kicking them out of the temple as if they were inanimate objects. They landed in the sand outside the temple with a dull thud, their immobilized bodies barely able to react. As Michael emerged from the temple, he stretched his neck audibly, preparing for what came next. You bastard! Give us the antidote. Dogu's shout resonated, but Michael continued his course of action, tying the paralyzed dwarves together with swift and precise movements. Do you like flying? Michael inquired of Dogu, his words dripping with irony as the other dwarves struggled helplessly. All they could do was move their eyes, a stark contrast to the fluidity of Michael's movements. What the fuck are you talking about? The dwarf leader snapped, but before he could process it, he found himself lifted into the sky, tethered to the others. Shit! The scream escaped Dogu's lips in a high-pitched frenzy. The moment Michael nearly brushed the clouds, he released the rope that held the dwarves, leaving them to plummet. As they fell, the wind rushed against their faces. Dogu's cries filled the air, while the others could only experience the impending dread. Their lack of the protective chain became evident, and the inevitable outcome was clear. Michael, having distanced himself, witnessed the Sand Emperor emerge from the desert, its massive jaws devouring the diminutive figures. Let's move, Michael declared calmly after the Sand Emperor had burrowed back into the dunes. Is Birmian City marked on the map? Iag inquired. No, but it's on our route to the divine portals, Michael replied, his gaze fixed on the map as he spoke. Eventually, Birmian City came into view on the horizon. The city was an extraordinary sight, nestled amidst the desert landscape. Its buildings were constructed from sand itself, an awe-inspiring example of melding architecture with the environment. Sand walls encircled the city, blending with the natural terrain, offering protection against the harsh desert winds. Torches flickered, casting a warm glow that danced across the sandy streets, illuminating the night as Michael approached. We should touch down and proceed on foot, Vidora advised before curling into Michael's coat pocket. We really need to find a solution for your appearance. You'll have to remember to brew a transformation potion for you, Michael remarked as he gently landed on the sandy ground. I'm curious about what those dwarves said. Creating our species artificially? How is that even possible? Iag inquired, seeking Michael's thoughts. Given the right resources, knowledge, and time, almost anything can be achieved. We'll look into it later. For now, let's spend the night in the city, gather information about this realm, and then head towards the divine portals, Michael decided as he set off towards the city. Walking the path to the city, Michael was taken aback by the absence of guards, a surprise in itself. As he stepped inside, he noticed the bustling activity that unfolded before him, yet oddly not a single guard crossed his path. The city of Birmian sprawled before Michael, an intricate tapestry woven with sand and stone. Its buildings rose from the desert, constructed not from conventional materials but from the very sand beneath his feet. The structures blended with the environment, a testament to the resilience of the city's inhabitants. As Michael walked through the bustling streets, conversations reached his ears, snippets of discussions that painted a clearer picture of this realm. Did you hear the latest news about the war between Raynar and Cronar? One person in the crowd asked another, their voices filled with a mix of curiosity and concern. Yeah, it's been escalating. Some say Raynar's forces managed to secure another territory, the second person replied, shaking their head. And what about the worshippers of Agra? A third voice chimed in, worry etched in their tone. I heard they're preying on those fleeing the war. People trying to escape are being killed or robbed. True. It's becoming a nightmare. Those Agra worshippers believe that the chaos from the war feeds their god's power, the first person said, their voice tinged with fear. In the bustling streets, Michael's ears caught fragments of conversations drifting through the air. Seeking guidance, he approached a local resident and inquired, "Excuse me, could you point me to a place where I could stay for the night, perhaps a tavern?" "Sure thing," the man replied, gesturing ahead. "Just head straight and take the first left. You can't miss the Sandcastle Tavern." Following the given directions, Michael found himself walking alongside a small group of people who were headed in the same direction. As he turned at the indicated corner, a distinctive cone-shaped structure loomed into view, crafted from sand and crowned with a wooden sign that read Sandcastle. Entering the tavern, Michael was enveloped by its warm atmosphere. The interior was adorned with an array of candle holders and torches that cast a gentle glow across the room. The air was thick with the scent of ale and the sound of animated chatter filled the space. Amidst the lively crowd, Michael was drawn to an empty seat next to a hooded man. Michael settled into the vacant seat and promptly caught the attention of a red-haired young waiter despite the bustling surroundings. "What can I get you?" "Our special tonight is roasted lamb chops with freshly brewed ale," the waiter offered. "I'll take the special," Michael replied, prompting a nod from the young man before he disappeared into the crowd. Amidst the hubbub of conversation, Michael overheard snippets discussing the ongoing war and its toll on the realm. A particularly vocal drunkard complained about the escalation, while another cautioned against speaking ill of the Pantheon. Others joined in, expressing their collective desire for the conflict to end, blaming the Agra worshippers for profiting from the chaos. As the topic turned to Agra worshippers, Michael mentally noted their apparent role in the realm's strife. While listening, he received his mug of ale from the young man, who informed him that his food would follow shortly. "Thank you," Michael acknowledged, his gaze remaining on the scene. Suddenly, his expression shifted to a frown as he sensed a formidable presence coalescing around the tavern through his environmental awareness. These powerful entities were closing in from all directions with astonishing speed. Suddenly, before anyone could react, the wooden door exploded into splinters as a group of men clad in gleaming white armor burst into the tavern. Their entrance was accompanied by the cacophony of gunshots, as they ordered everyone to freeze. "N0 Velus B. C0M, nobody move. Stay where you are," one of the armored men shouted, his voice sharp and commanding. The patrons inside the tavern were shocked by the abrupt intrusion, their initial chatter giving way to startled shouts. "Angels!" someone yelled in disbelief. The group of intruders, unmistakably angels by their appearance, acted with swift authority. They pointed their weapons at the bewildered crowd, forcing them to drop to their knees in submission. Fear and panic were palpable in the air as people complied, their faces etched with terror. Michael's gaze locked onto the angels, taking in the feathery wings on their backs and the gleam of silver swords hanging at their waists. Their imposing presence and the gleaming armor marked them as formidable beings, and he remained still in his seat, carefully observing the unfolding scene while keeping his own abilities concealed. As the tense minutes passed, one of the angels approached Michael's table. With a stern expression, the angel forcefully pushed him and the man seated beside him to the ground, their bodies ending up on their knees. The pressure of the angel's hand on his shoulder was firm, leaving no room for resistance. Gradually, the scene repeated throughout the tavern, with the patrons being forced to kneel under the watchful eyes of the angels. Michael observed as the once lively atmosphere turned into one of complete submission. Fear was evident in the eyes of the people, who avoided making direct eye contact with the celestial beings that had invaded their space. Whispers of prayers and muted sobs filled the air as the angels established their dominance over the establishment. Michael remained vigilant, his instincts telling him that this encounter might have something to do with the events in the realm, possibly connected to the war between Raynar and Cronar. After a tense silence, a figure clad in resplendent white armor entered the tavern, his heavy footfalls resounding like ominous drumbeats. The angel's golden wings marked him as distinct, and upon his arrival the other angels snapped to attention, standing rigidly in his presence. "It has come to my attention that an Agra worshipper dwells among you," the angel with the glistening wings addressed the terrified patrons. His voice was measured, but an underlying current of deadly intent laced his words. The tavern's occupants exchanged fearful glances and hushed whispers at the angel's pronouncement. Reveal the offender now, or all shall suffer the consequences. 100 innocent lives may be sacrificed, but not a single aggro worshipper shall escape retribution, the angel declared without any compassion. If this world seems harsh, brace yourself for the realm of gods. There things are far worse, echoed Nithrol's warning in Michael's thoughts. He kept his head lowered, concealing his godly identity. As his eyes flicked upward, he noticed the angel's gaze fixated on him. To Michael's dismay, the angel steadily advanced toward him. There's a scent of impending death here, the golden-winged angel remarked, inhaling deeply as if savoring the air around Michael. A chuckle escaped the angel's lips, and he leaned in closer to Michael. What do we have here? Word has it that you're bound for the divine portal. But do you think you can slip away unnoticed? The angel's question dripped with taunting amusement as he unsheathed his sword with deliberate slowness. Internally sighing, Michael was utterly perplexed, unable to fathom how the angel had deduced his intentions. Suspicion even brushed against Marley, but he found it difficult to believe that she could have betrayed him. Chapter 1062 Smiting the Angels. The leader angel's demand hung heavily in the tense air, causing the tavern's patrons to shrink back in fear and silence. None dared to utter a word. With measured precision, the angel positioned his sword menacingly between Michael and the customer seated next to him. Michael's thoughts raced as he grappled with the angel's words. What is he talking about? He muttered to himself, bewildered by the situation. Reveal the portal's location and I shall grant you swift death, the leading angel commanded. Michael's heavy sigh underscored his mounting frustration. He had hoped to find the divine portals, but this encounter revealed that the situation was far more complex. Someone had indeed concealed the portals, likely the very aggro worshipper this angel sought. Michael's mind raced to understand the how and why of it. The angel's voice grew sterner. No answer then? He looked piercingly at Michael. A golden light began to envelop the angel's sword, and Michael braced himself for the confrontation. He intended to defend himself and counterattack, though he knew it would complicate his plan to gather more knowledge before engaging in battles. Unexpectedly, the hooded figure at Michael's side sprang into action, his voice an exasperated growl. A crimson-red beam shot forth, striking the angel's chest and sending him hurtling through the crowd. The turn of events surprised Michael, as the other angels scrambled to respond. Kill the aggro worshipper, they cried in unison, launching themselves toward the hooded figure. Come with me if you want to live, the hooded figure's voice resonated in Michael's mind. As the other angels closed in from all sides, the hooded figure deftly retrieved an object from his pocket, tossing it to the ground. The resulting explosion enveloped them in a thick red smoke. Within the swirling haze, a hand landed on Michael's shoulder, and the world around him seemed to warp and twist. In the span of an instant, the tavern scene and its cacophony vanished, replaced by the barren desert as Michael found himself alongside the hooded figure. A puzzled furrow settled on Michael's brow. Did he just pull us into his mess? Iag's voice, emanating from Michael's pocket, was tinged with concern. Michael wasted no time. Who are you? He inquired. The hooded figure gradually revealed himself, fiery red hair cascading from beneath the hood, and crimson eyes locking onto Michael's gaze. A small flame mark adorned his forehead, marking his allegiance to the god Agra. But the figure wasn't done. The real question is, who are you? He retorted. Michael maintained his composure as the hooded individual pressed on. Your reaction to the angel's sword was intriguing. Or rather, your lack of reaction. Only a seasoned killer would face that sword without fear. It's a rarity in this world. You didn't even flinch. So who are you? The figure's keen observation skills took Michael aback. I might just be someone who didn't want to be caught in your troubles, Michael shot back, folding his arms. The figure shook his head. No, you're someone in search of the divine portals. Your curiosity was evident when the angel mentioned them. The glimmer in your eyes gave you away. The depth of the figure's insight left Michael genuinely surprised. We can be allies, the aggro worshipper suggested. N0 Velisp. C0 and Michael's skepticism was palpable. And why should I believe you can be of any assistance, let alone that I'd willingly step into your mess with the angels? He countered. Because there's something different about you, the aggro worshipper replied. Before Michael could reply, he sensed a distortion in the air around him. They're coming, Sarba whispered through their mental link, detecting an impending teleportation. True to Sarba premonition, a portal materialized next to Michael and the aggro worshipper. The cerulean whirlpool shimmered as the angels who had stormed the tavern emerged from its depths. An aggro worshipper and his follower, the lead angel sneered, the mask and helmet still obscuring his face, though his contempt for the worshipper was evident. "You didn't strike me as the devotee of such a vile god," the lead angel remarked, his gaze shifting to Michael. "Because I'm not," Michael replied calmly. "Intriguing," the angel mused, stroking his chin. He then redirected his attention back to the red-haired aggro worshipper. The angels behind the leader sprang into motion, materializing behind Michael and the aggro worshipper. Swift kicks to their knees forced both of them down onto the sand, rendering them defenseless. "Your feeble attempt to evade us is laughable. A mere teleportation portal won't shield you from our grasp. It wounds me that you believed you could elude us," the lead angel sneered as he approached the aggro worshipper, delivering a resounding slap across his face. "Theo, we shall escort these two to His Grace Raynar's temple and purify their souls," another angel, firmly gripping the aggro worshipper's shoulder, suggested. "Agreed. However, we must first extract the whereabouts of the divine portals from him. His Grace desires their location," Theo, the lead angel, concurred. "I won't utter a word," the aggro worshipper retorted defiantly. "Yes, I am aware. Followers of Agra can withstand any torment inflicted upon them, a unique trait of serving that vile god. But what about your companion here?" Theo's gaze shifted to Michael, his tone calculated. "I've never seen him before in my life," Michael maintained, irritation simmering beneath his surface due to the angels and the aggro worshipper. "Stay strong, buddy. We'll get through this." "Don't let these jerks intimidate you," the aggro worshipper reassured Michael, employing a cunning ploy to mislead the angels into believing they were allies. "Unbelievable," Iag hissed, her vexation evident. Michael caught onto the aggro worshipper's ruse and his sly grin, but when Theo turned his attention back to Michael, the grin faded, replaced by a counterfeit rage. "Don't you dare lay a finger on him," the aggro worshipper erupted. Theo's facade shifted from anger to amusement with a devilish chuckle. "Which part of your friend do you cherish most? Personally, I'm quite fond of cutting what lies between his legs. But let's begin with his fingers," he remarked, exuding a sinister demeanor. "Take a look at him. Does he really seem like my friend?" Michael interjected, realizing the crafty maneuver the aggro worshipper was attempting. As Theo turned to scrutinize Michael, the smile melted away, quickly replaced by a veneer of faux anger. "Don't think for a second you can manipulate us," Theo hissed under his breath. "Fucking idiots," Iag whispered, her frustration palpable. Theo advanced slowly toward Michael, while the angel behind him seized Michael's hand and elevated it. "Agra is watching all of this, you bastard. You will come to my aid. Remember the might of the god Agra," the aggro worshipper exclaimed defiantly. "No, he won't," the angel retorted, producing a golden orb with a deft motion. With a toss, the orb settled onto the sandy ground, forming a shimmering golden dome around them. "You're now severed from teleportation and barred from utilizing any powers granted by your loathsome god. Agra can offer you nothing," Theo taunted. "In truth, no deity can provide refuge," Theo added with a mocking laugh. Meanwhile, Michael hastily instructed his analyzer to evaluate the golden orb. "This item is an energy disruptor. It will obstruct all surveillance and halt energy flow through its barrier. It can also conceal your divine aura if you choose to employ your powers. However, this item has a one-time use limit," the system analyzer conveyed to Michael. Unbeknownst to the angels and Theo, they had unwittingly encased themselves with a god. Their intention was to isolate the aggro worshipper and thwart any intervention from the deity Agra. "We shall commence with his pinky, savoring the process," Theo remarked, positioning a dagger over Michael's pinky finger. "I always seem to find myself in trouble when I attempt to avoid it," Michael sighed. Theo was taken aback, expecting Michael to scream and plead for help. Instead, Michael appeared composed and sighed. "Just so you know, I was being truthful. I had never met him before," Michael stated calmly. "Stay strong, brother," the aggro worshipper shouted, maintaining the pretense of camaraderie between himself and Michael. "You don't need to pretend any longer," Michael remarked. "I've had enough of this," Theo snickered, thrusting his dagger at Michael's pinky. However, the dagger chipped upon failing to pierce Michael's skin. The angels and Theo were stunned. But before they could react, the golden dome began to darken. "What in the hell?" the angel restraining Michael grumbled as Michael defied the force on his shoulder, rising to his feet despite the angel's efforts. In an instant, Michael seized Theo by the neck, crushing it and shattering Theo's metal mask. But before Michael could finish Theo, the two angels behind him attempted to stab him with their holy swords. Swiftly, Michael hurled Theo aside and evaded the attacking angels. With fluid motion, he drew two dark swords from behind and severed the angels' hands in a matter of seconds, causing them to scream in agony. Without hesitation, Michael lunged forward, beheading the angels. Disregarding the system notifications, he dispatched the two celestial beings in the blink of an eye. As Michael turned, blood splattered across his face, leaving an ominous stain. The aggro worshipper and Theo finally comprehended that Michael was neither a mere killer nor a mortal, but a god. You're a god. Theo mumbled in absolute shock. The remaining four angels promptly materialized behind Theo, positioning themselves against Michael. They released the aggro worshipper from their grip, recognizing the greater threat at hand. I thought angels were supposed to embody goodness and kindness, Michael snickered, using his wrist to wipe the blood off his face. Guess I was mistaken, Michael commented. How can a god be present here? What god are you? Theo's voice rang out. That's a question whose answer you won't discover in this lifetime, Michael responded calmly. Simultaneously within the golden dome, darkness engulfed the space, rendering it pitch black. The aggro worshipper inched away, horrified by the angels' screams and the cacophony of blades slicing through both metal and flesh. The sickening sounds of blood spraying and the metallic tang of the scent filled the air, overwhelming his senses. Chapter 1063 Cultivation Realms. In the realm of gods. As the darkness within the golden dome dissipated, the aggro worshipper gazed at Michael with a mixture of fear and shock in his eyes. He realized something was off about the man, but the revelation that he was a god caught him entirely off guard. Now that you've dragged me into your mess, are you going to tell me where to find the divine portals? Michael inquired calmly, moving toward the aggro worshipper, whose attention was fixed on the lifeless forms of the decapitated angels. We never properly introduced ourselves. Let's start with your name, Michael proposed, extending his hand to help the aggro worshipper to his feet. Despite his astonishment, Darth grabbed the god's hand and stood up. I am Darth, the aggro worshipper replied. I am Ghost, and your continued existence hinges on your discretion regarding what transpired here, Michael stated to Darth with a reassuring smile. An unsettling shiver ran down Darth's spine in response. Now, shall we head to where you've concealed the divine portals before more angels appear? Michael queried. Observing the fading flicker of the golden dome, he knew its effects were about to wane. Accordingly, he directed his hand outward, unleashing a stream of dark flames that swiftly reduced the angels to ashes. Darth felt the temperature surge dramatically, causing him to break into a sweat. The bodies were soon reduced to ash, and the temperature normalized once the dark flames subsided. Darth nodded, rendered nearly speechless by the presence of such a formidable god. As the dome's remnants vanished entirely, Michael began to walk away from the scene, and Darth followed by his side. I never anticipated that the goddess of luck, Fortuna, would come to my aid by sending a god, Darth confided as they walked. So, you used to be a worshipper of Agra, Michael remarked, seeking to delve deeper into Darth's knowledge of the world. I was, but am out of that game now. I'm a drifter, unbound to any god, Darth revealed. That sounds like quite a situation. So what's your plan? Considering the angels won't leave you be, and it seems Agra won't be rushing to your aid anytime soon, Michael continued the conversation, adopting a guise of someone familiar with the world. Darth had knowledge about the world's workings, and Michael needed to gather more insights from him. I'm heading to the infinite ocean. The divine portals will serve as my means to get there. I can escape this wretched place and live out the rest of my days on the ocean, fulfilling a dream of mine, Darth explained. But if the angels believed you found and concealed the divine portals, why didn't you use them to leave instead of returning to Birmian City? Michael inquired. I needed to say my farewells to someone I hold dear. With that done, I can depart this realm in peace, sighed Darth. Your journey would have been a lot less peaceful if you hadn't crossed paths with me, Michael retorted with a smirk. True, fortune has shown me favor, Darth replied. However, luck won't suffice to keep you safe unless you reveal the location of the hidden portals. I need them to reach Nimbosia, Michael stated firmly. You can use them to reach your desired destination. I wish you luck. You'll need it once the Pantheon catches wind of a rogue god wandering about, Darth said as they continued their journey across the desert. You managed to kill Raynar's angels, but don't underestimate the ones the Pantheon will send. They'll be far more formidable, each at or above the elemental attunement realm, Darth warned. Michael mentally noted the cultivation realm levels of the angels and used this as an opportunity to learn more about the hierarchy of power in this world. He recognized that in this world, no matter how advanced the mortals' cultivation, they paled in comparison to the gods. Still, the cultivation realms of the angels determined their capacity to withstand a god's power. For example, only higher-level angels could survive merging their energy with their patron god's trace of grace. In this case, Theo was at the spiritual embryo realm, where cultivators form a spiritual embryo within their dantian, a seed of potential power. This level was the third in a 9-tiered cultivation hierarchy. Therefore, Theo could only endure a level 3 god's trace of grace. In essence, the angels' cultivation realm determined their ability to absorb and withstand a god's grace. Could you refresh my memory on your mortals' cultivation realms? Michael inquired, pretending ignorance while secretly seeking more insight. Darth, sensing something peculiar about the god beside him, no longer attempted to manipulate the situation. We have the initiate realm, chi awakening realm, spiritual embryo realm, elemental attunement realm, celestial resonance realm, soul ignition realm, ethereal fusion realm, void transcendence realm, and divine ascendancy realm, Darth listed. Michael mentally cataloged this information about the realm hierarchy for the inhabitants of this world. In truth, only a select few devout worshippers or those favored by the gods could even achieve the initiate realm. The majority of the population remained powerless, and some who had reached the celestial stage in the mortal realm, upon ascending, were stripped of their powers and memories, reborn as mere weaklings. As Michael continued walking, he recalled the words Marley had shared with him regarding the hierarchy of godhood in the realm of gods. The stages are fledgling god, demigod, celestial god, ethereal god, astral god, elder god, primordial god, transcendent god, and ancient god. Though it's said that the ancient god level has become a myth, as no one, not even the gods of the pantheon, has managed to reach that pinnacle. As we approach the portals, we can part ways, Darth stated, breaking the silence that had enveloped them. Have you been to Nimbosia? Michael inquired of Darth. Yeah, a couple of times. It's a mess up there. Since you don't seem to be in the pantheon, I'd advise against going there. Raynar can be even crazier than Agra at times. I genuinely feel sorry for the people under the rule of the god of rain, Darth sighed, showing his empathy for those under the dominion of Raynar. Curiosity was piqued. Isn't it obvious? You just took down Raynar's angels. Angels of a, why do you assume him not from the pantheon? Michael's curiosity was piqued. Isn't it obvious? You just took down Raynar's angels, angels of a pantheon god. It's rare for anyone in the pantheon to kill another god's angels. Angels from one god killing those of another has happened, but gods directly killing angels of another god? That's not something I've heard of, Darth explained. As Michael and Darth continued their journey towards the divine portals, Michael gained more insights into the realm of gods from Darth's perspective. However, Darth was unaware of the peculiar phenomenon preventing gods from venturing outside their domains, a topic Michael was keen to explore. N0 VLUSB. C0M, if you don't mind my asking, why are you heading to Nimbosia? Inquired Darth. I'm taking a vacation and exploring the world, Michael responded with a wry smile. Darth realized that Michael wouldn't reveal his true purpose for visiting Nimbosia. He had no interest in anything beyond getting rid of Theo and his angels. Now that they were out of the picture, Darth's focus was on reaching the infinite ocean and starting anew there. What if Agra sends his angels to punish you for abandoning your devotion to him? Michael asked, probing the consequences of forsaking a god's worship. I hope he won't until I reach the infinite ocean. Once I'm there, no one can catch me, Darth explained. Why is that? Michael inquired. Darth was once again taken aback by the god's lack of knowledge. Nonetheless, he chose to share information until they reached the location of the hidden divine portals. The infinite ocean earned its name for a reason. Moreover, the gods hold no sway over the ocean, it's a forbidden zone, Darth clarified. As they conversed, they ascended a sand dune and beheld the oasis in the distance. The lush appearance of the oasis offered a stark contrast to the surrounding desert. Is that where you've hidden the portals? Michael asked Darth. Darth nodded. With a relieved sigh, Michael and Darth made their way towards the oasis. Despite its apparent lack of inhabitants, Michael remained vigilant, his senses on high alert. Allow me some time to dispel the illusions. Once they're gone, I'll activate the portals and you can use one to reach Nimbosia, Darth instructed Michael. Sounds like a plan, Michael responded. As the oasis drew closer, Michael's excitement grew. The realm of gods held both challenges and opportunities that he was eager to explore. "How much time do you need to dispel the illusions?" Michael inquired. 10 minutes should suffice, replied Darth. Approaching the oasis, Michael squatted down to splash his face with the cool water. The refreshing sensation of the water against his skin revitalized him. "Can we really trust this guy?" Iag's voice whispered from his coat pocket. "Absolutely not, and we don't need to. Once we have the portal, we'll go our separate ways," Michael replied. "I think we should eliminate him," suggested Iag. "No, I suspect he has some tricks up his sleeve. We shouldn't make more enemies in this world until we understand the situation better," Michael explained. While washing his face, Michael glanced at his reflection in the clear water. But his attention was quickly drawn to something else. In the sky, a fiery and brilliant object streaked through, rapidly approaching them. Turning slowly, Michael saw what seemed like a shooting star heading straight for them. An uneasy feeling settled over him as he frowned, sensing that something was off. The shooting star grew larger and drew nearer. "Damn it!" Michael leaped into the oasis just as the fireball struck the sand nearby, triggering a powerful explosion. Emerging from the water, Michael observed a figure emerging from the aftermath of smoke and sand. The fiery ambience was accompanied by the heavy clank of armor, and a metallic scent of blood permeated the air. "Agra wants to have a little chat with you, Darth," the figure's voice cut through the lingering smoke and sand. Michael's gaze shifted to Darth, who was gradually rising to his feet. "He wants his favorite angel back." The figure's words were aimed directly at Darth. Chapter 1064 God Agra and his angels Larn. The word slipped from Darth's lips as he laboriously regained his footing. Meanwhile, Michael remained afloat in the oasis, his head above the water. Vidora's ability to breathe underwater had proved to be a life-saving advantage. Larn, the angel of God Agra, grabbed Darth by the neck, raising him off the ground. Unbeknownst to Michael, who could no longer discern the angel's cultivation levels in this unfamiliar world, Larn was at the celestial resonance realm, the 5th stage of cultivation. This meant he could absorb a fragment of level 5 God Agra's grace to gain a power boost. "You can emerge from the water now," Larn's voice cut through, addressing Michael. With a sigh, Michael waded out of the water, his neck making a cracking sound as he stretched it. "Who are you? A friend of Darth?" Larn questioned, but Michael remained silent. "I'm not going back to him, Larn. I've had enough of serving him," Darth growled, his voice heavy with anger and pain. Michael was taken aback by the revelation that Darth was actually an angel of Agra. Listening to Darth's words, Michael sensed a complex history between Agra and Darth. "You sort out your matters. I just need the divine portals to reach Nimbosia," Michael interjected, his intentions clear. He wanted no involvement with Agra or the two angels before him. "Silence, mortal." Larn's shout sent a powerful shockwave at Michael. Michael willed his protective shield not to react, allowing the shockwave to hurl him into the air. He needed to avoid using his powers to avoid alerting the Pantheon of his presence. Unlike Theo and his angels, Larn didn't rely on artifacts to prevent godly intervention. Darth's gaze shifted between Michael and Larn, a glimmer of hope in his eyes for Michael to unleash his divine powers. However, Michael managed to restrain himself. "Don't resist, Darth. Simply return to his grace and offer your apology. I'm sure he will find it in his heart to forgive his favored angel." Larn's words held an ironic edge, evident even to Michael. Darth's voice cracked through the air, carrying a determined no. He unleashed his power, a surge of energy enveloping him. With a fierce expression, he lunged forward, his fist connecting with Larn's chest. The impact sent Larn hurtling through the sand, creating a deep furrow in his wake. Larn rose from the sand, his excitement palpable. "Ah, so you found your spine, Darth. Let's see what you can truly do," he taunted, his voice dripping with anticipation. Darth's eyes blazed with a fiery determination. He summoned his power and readied himself for a confrontation. "Prepare yourself, Larn. I won't be controlled by Agra any longer," he declared. Waving his hand, Darth summoned an ethereal eagle formed of crimson-red energy. The magnificent creature materialized with grandeur, its wings outstretched as it let out a piercing cry that echoed through the desert. Larn's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Impressive, but let's see if your pet can match mine," he retorted, his own power surging. He summoned a crimson-red wolf with wings, a creature equally imposing and fierce. Both summoned creatures dashed at each other, a collision of ethereal forms. The crimson-red eagle's wings beat with power as it soared through the air, its talons poised to strike. The crimson-red wolf leaped with grace, its wings propelling it forward, teeth bared for battle. The eagle's feathers shimmered in the desert starlight, and its eyes glowed with an otherworldly intensity. With a flurry of movement, it clashed with the wolf. The sand beneath them trembled as their energies collided, creating ripples in the air. Darth's gaze remained unwavering as he controlled the movements of his summoned eagle. "Show him your strength," he whispered to his creation. Larn's laughter echoed as he guided his crimson-red wolf. "Come on, Darth. Is this the best you can do?" he taunted, his voice mocking. The fight raged on, each summon unleashing its own arsenal of attacks. The desert around them shook with their power, sand swirling in chaotic eddies. The clash of energies created bursts of light and sound that reverberated through the oasis. Darth's determination fueled the crimson-red eagle, each movement precise and calculated. The wolf matched its adversary with equal ferocity, teeth snapping and wings slashing through the air. The battle was a spectacle of raw power and intensity. Amidst the clash of summoned creatures, Darth's voice cut through the tumultuous air. "Agra is not a god. He's an evil entity that seeks nothing but death and destruction." His words reverberated with conviction, carried by the winds of the battle. Larn's retort was swift, his crimson-red wolf lunging at the eagle with renewed vigor. "And yet, you serve that same entity without batting an eye. What's changed, Darth? Suddenly questioning the very being you once worshipped?" His voice held a mixture of scorn and amusement. "Landscape." Larn's taunts continued, his voice dripping with mockery. "Is this an amusement?" As the ethereal battle raged on, Michael watched from a distance with growing annoyance. The divine portals were within reach, yet the interruption by these angels continued to thwart his plans. He clenched his fists, his patience wearing thin. He wanted to end this conflict and secure the means to reach Nimbosia. Darth's anger and determination seemed to fuel his summoned eagle further. Its movements became more intricate, its attacks more strategic. The crimson-red wolf countered with equal fervor, each clash of energy sending shockwaves through the desert landscape. Larn's taunts continued, his voice dripping with mockery. "Is this the extent of your newfound defiance, Darth? Facing me, a loyal servant of Agra?" Darth's response was laced with unwavering determination. "You're blind to the truth, Larn. You're a puppet, blindly following a malevolent force. I won't be part of it any longer." The battle reached a crescendo, the clash of summoned creatures becoming a spectacle of power and will. Each creature's movements painted streaks of crimson energy across the desert sky, their clashes creating bursts of light that illuminated the landscape. Michael's annoyance grew with every passing moment. He couldn't afford any more delays, not when his presence in this realm was becoming more apparent to the Pantheon. He needed those divine portals and he needed them now. Darth's voice broke through the chaos again, his words carrying a fierce determination. "Agra may have deceived me once, but I won't be his pawn any longer." Larn's laughter resonated, cutting through the battle's cacophony. "And what do you hope to achieve, Darth? Defeating me won't change your fate. You're marked by Agra. N0VLUSB. C0M, this Agra god seems like a big deal, Ghost?" Iag's voice sounded from within Michael's pocket. "Yeah, I have a feeling we might cross his path in the future," Sarba added. "I don't care. I need the divine portals and this Larn guy is messing up my plans," Michael replied with a hint of frustration. "Well, you can't kill him without using your powers," Iag pointed out. "True, but I can at least distract him. Maybe that'll give Darth an advantage," Michael planned, hoping a distraction would help Darth gain the upper hand in the battle. Anytime now, Michael was about to make his move when Darth's voice echoed through the chaos, causing him to pause. The ethereal eagle summoned by Darth appeared to be weakening, while the crimson-red wolf grew larger and more menacing due to Larn's connection to Agra. "Do you think your mortal friend can help you?" "How the mighty have fallen," Larn sneered. "You have no idea," Darth began, but before he could reveal Michael's true identity as a god, Michael intervened. "You two can continue this fight later. I'm just interested in the divine portals. Show them to me and I'll be on my way," Michael interjected, momentarily halting the battle. "Who's this guy? We're in the middle of a fight and he looks like he's on vacation," Larn chuckled, his surprise evident. "Darth, you can't win against him. He's more powerful than you. So, activate the portals," Michael suggested to Darth, prompting a spark of pride in Larn's eyes, and he smirked arrogantly. "Well, your mortal friend is correct. But it's a shame I won't be letting either of you go anywhere. You're both coming to meet his grace and you," Larn shifted his gaze from Darth to Michael. "You are going to die," Larn declared with a smug smile. Activate the portals, Michael instructed Darth, and the battle between the eagle and the wolf continued. As the clash intensified, Michael used the distraction to kick sand towards Larn. However, the sand disintegrated upon reaching Larn, his power obliterating it. Pathetic trick, Larn sneered, his hand emanating a crimson-red energy beam that he aimed at Michael. Yet, Michael swiftly raised his hand, revealing the black shield, which surprisingly absorbed the energy beams instead of shattering. A powerful artifact, Larn's eyes gleamed with greed, desiring the shield for himself. Simultaneously, Darth evaded Larn's attacks and seized hold of a solitary coconut tree on the oasis edge. His touch caused a golden light to flicker, manifesting beside the tree, the portal. Larn's taunting voice broke the momentary stillness. "You're going nowhere," he jeered, his hand raised to strike. In response, the wolf lunged at the eagle, clamping its jaws around the eagle's neck. The golden eagle shattered into radiant fragments. The force of this shattered connection made Darth cough up blood and collapse to the ground. Larn prepared to target Darth with his energy beam, but before he could, Michael lunged forward and delivered a powerful punch to the angel's face. The impact sent Larn hurtling away with a resounding explosion. As Larn soared through the air, the wolf redirected its hostile attention to Michael, its eyes gleaming with aggression. "Get up and activate the portals," Michael shouted to Darth, preparing to confront the wolf. He unsheathed his dark swords with a deliberate, tense motion and cracked his neck. "You're the last obstacle before I reach Nimbosia," Michael declared, his frustration evident. "Just give me a moment," Darth uttered weakly, pulling himself together. Suddenly, the wolf emitted a fierce howl and lunged at Michael from above. "You want to defeat that creature without using your powers?" Sarba's voice was tinged with anxiety as the wolf closed in. Just as the wolf was about to pounce on Michael, Vidora sprang out of Michael's pocket and perched on his head. In response, Iag surged forward and opened her mouth wide. The wolf bared its teeth, leaping at Michael with aggression. Simultaneously, Iag unleashed a powerful sonic wave with a resounding shout. Visible as a tangible force, the sonic wave streaked toward the wolf. The collision between the wave and the wolf created a burst of energy, throwing the creature backward and causing it to emit a pained growl. Observing the wolf's momentary setback, Michael noticed Larn beginning to rise, preparing to re-engage in the battle. "Come on, Darth, hurry," Michael urged, his voice laced with urgency. While the wolf growled and Larn approached, Michael's attention was drawn to a sudden appearance of a golden ring on the sandy ground. A palpable distortion in space emanated from it. "Oh no!" Larn's voice carried a mocking tone as he swiftly moved toward Michael and Darth, intent on preventing them from using the portal. "I can't hold them both off, Ghost," Iag's voice conveyed a sense of unease. As Larn closed in on them, he raised his hands, unleashing a rapid barrage of crimson-red energy beams aimed at Michael and Darth. Michael deflected the beams using his black shield, but he realized that he couldn't keep up this defense for long. If he truly aimed to halt Larn's advance, he would have to resort to his godly powers. "Just a few more seconds," Darth's voice resonated behind Michael. "Finish him off." Darth's words were driven by urgency, not knowing the reason behind Michael's hesitance to use his full powers. At last, Larn closed the distance to Michael, summoning a crimson-red spear from a space ring at his side. "He's about to strike us down," Darth warned, the energy levels around them surging to dangerous heights. Michael knew that his black shield might not withstand the force of Larn's spear. Larn's shout echoed in the air as he thrust the spear toward Michael, aiming for a fatal blow. Summoning his resolve, Michael lifted his dark sword and channeled his power, sending forth a powerful bolt of dark lightning from the blade's tip. Larn's eyes widened in shock, but before he could react, the lightning pierced through his chest, sending him hurtling backward. He flew a considerable distance before crashing onto the sandy ground at least 50 meters away. As Larn's body hit the ground, an eerie silence settled over the oasis. The use of Michael's power was accompanied by a resounding thunderclap and the sudden appearance of a crimson lightning streak in the otherwise clear night sky. "We need to leave," Michael stated, his gaze fixed on the ominous lightning streak above. Chapter 1065. A quest from the system. As Michael and Darth plunged into the portal's embrace, he felt a powerful tug, like being torn through a vortex. Unlike the instant teleportation he was accustomed to in the mortal realm, this journey was more like traversing a bridge of light, a luminous passage that carried him alongside Darth. "So, you were one of Agra's angels?" Michael inquired during their journey. "That's a part of my life I'd rather leave behind," Darth responded, his voice carrying the fatigue from his battle with Larn. The backlash of Larn's attack had affected Darth due to the connection he shared with his summoned creature, the Golden Eagle. I won't pry into the details, but you did drag me into your mess. If Agra's angels come hunting for me, you'll have to pay the consequences, Michael stated, his tone frigid. His purpose in the realm of gods was to strengthen himself and locate his seeds of darkness, not to make new enemies. I apologize. But facing Agra was inevitable for you. Unless you have a penchant for death and destruction, you'll find yourself at odds with him sooner or later, Darth responded, his voice tinged with resentment towards Agra. If you ever find yourself at the infinite ocean, perhaps we'll cross paths again. Don't worry, your secret of being a god is safe with me, Darth vowed, assuring Michael of his discretion. Michael could sense the honesty in Darth's gaze. A strong feeling stirred within Michael, hinting that their paths might converge again in the future. It seemed wise to spare Darth's life, as he could potentially become a valuable ally if they indeed clashed with Agra. That's good. Now, how much longer until we reach the end of this bridge? Michael inquired. Just a few more minutes? I'll create a branching exit for you that leads to the outskirts of Nimbosia. Direct teleportation into the city is prohibited, so you'll need to make your way from the outskirts, Darth explained. Understood, Michael acknowledged. As Darth inscribed glowing runes along the light bridge, Michael sensed the fabric of space shifting. Before long, a bright light emerged at the tunnel's end. Your exit awaits, Darth shouted, pointing towards the light. Good luck to you, and may you find what you're seeking in the infinite ocean, Michael conveyed before redirecting his trajectory towards the beckoning light. May Fortuna's favor be with you, Darth bid him farewell as Michael vanished into the light. The brilliance swallowed Michael, whisking him away from the bridge and depositing him onto a muddy path. He collided face first with the path's wet ground, the sounds of torrential rain overwhelming his senses. Abruptly, a resounding neigh filled the air, followed by a shout that pierced through the downpour. Where the hell did you come from? A voice exclaimed. Do you have a death wish, you asshole? If you want to die, fall in front of another carriage, another voice yelled at Michael. Amidst the heavy rain, Michael slowly pulled himself up from the muddy ground, silently cursing the teleportation portal that had deposited him here. As he rose, he noticed a carriage hitched to 4 sturdy brown horses, with 3 drenched figures atop it. N0 Velu SB. C0M, the man in the center, gripping the reins, seemed to be in his early 40s and had a commanding presence. Flanking him were 2 younger brown-haired men, all dressed in wet, broad robes. Get off the path, the man with the bald head ordered. Can you direct me to Nimbosia? Michael wiped mud from his face and asked the trio. They appeared momentarily surprised, then realization dawned on them. You're a refugee? The bald man inquired. Yeah, Michael decided to go along with the man's assumption. The carriage is full. If you're okay with it, you can sit on top of the carriage, one of the brown-haired men suggested. That works for me, Michael quickly agreed. Surveying the area, he saw nothing but a long path cutting through grasslands and forests in the distance. Traveling with these 3 on the carriage seemed like a reasonable choice. Hop on, one of the brown-haired men reached out and assisted Michael onto the carriage's roof. With a shake of the reins, the bald man urged the horses into a gallop along the muddy path. So, where did you come from? The bald man inquired. Out of nowhere, the younger man beside him chimed in. I bet he's from Thorndale, another man added before Michael could even speak. Michael's feigned surprise at their deduction seemed to amuse them. How did you know? Michael asked, pretending to be amazed by their keen observation. His tone flattered the 3, eliciting proud smiles from them. We've been shuttling refugees to and from Nimbosia for months. So it's either you're from Nimbosia or Thorndale. Your question about the direction gave it away, explained Billy, the bald man. Billy, he introduced himself. Harris, Leon and Micah, Billy gestured to his companions. How are things in Nimbosia? Michael inquired. How are things in Thorndale? Micah responded with a question. Not good, Michael guessed, given the ongoing war between the 2 kingdoms. Well, in Nimbosia things are worse. This rain is nothing compared to what falls within the kingdom. It's as if Raynar is punishing his domain for lack of devotion. Just last week, a group of orphan children drowned. Billis' voice carried a mix of anger and sadness. The news of orphan children's death struck a chord with Michael. Having been an orphan himself and having cared for children like that, he felt a surge of emotion. Blaming Raynar for their deaths, he silently labeled him as a villain. Gods? Micah sighed. Shut up, you fool. Don't mock the gods. May Fortuna shield your words from the pantheon and other deities, Billy admonished sternly, touching the medallion hanging from his neck. What's your name? Leon asked. John, Michael offered a simple common name. Who do you pray for? Billy inquired, showing his religious side. Fortuna, Michael promptly replied, invoking the name of the goddess of luck. She seemed well known in this world, so Michael decided to use her name. Unbeknownst to them, they were traveling with a god. Fellow Fortuna worshipper. Makes sense, as you met us instead of Agra's followers, Leon chuckled. Shut up, Leon. Don't even mention that vile god's name. You'll bring bad luck upon us. Billy quickly silenced him and touched his medallion again. The mention of Agra's name instilled fear in their eyes, deepening Michael's curiosity about this deity. Do you have any gold with you, John? Micah suddenly inquired. I do, Michael responded, pulling out a few gold coins from his pocket, assuming they were asking for payment. However, their surprise was evident as they saw the plain gold coins in Michael's hand. What kind of gold coins are these? There's no crest or symbol on them, Billy observed. It's raw gold, Leon added. Putting the gold coins back in his pocket, he realized that the realm used different currencies, prompting him to convert his gold coins. John, you won't be able to use these anywhere. If I were you, I'd try one of the dwarven banks and exchange them for Nimbosia currency, Micah advised. They'll do that. Thanks for the heads up, Michael nodded. Putting the gold coins back in his pocket, he realized that the realm used different currencies, prompting him to convert his gold coins into something usable. Soon, the carriage entered a dense forest where the canopy offered some respite from the heavy rain. Hey John, do you happen to have a sword or something to defend yourself? Billy's sudden question took Michael by surprise. Yes, Michael nodded. Why do you ask? Michael inquired. Nothing. Just curious, Billy evaded, though his tone held a trace of fear. An eerie silence fell over the three of them as the sound of galloping horses grew louder. Michael remained quiet, his senses heightened. The forest appeared ordinary on the surface, like any he had seen in the mortal realm. Yet, Michael's heightened awareness alerted him to hidden hostiles. His keen sight allowed him to spot figures concealed behind trees and bushes, despite their attempts at hiding. I have a bad feeling, Micah, Billy's voice quivered. Though he hadn't revealed to Michael, whom he knew as John, that rumors had circulated about Agra worshippers in this forest, he hoped they were mere rumors. These worshippers, known as vile bandits, wandered this realm without allegiance to any kingdom, driven solely by death and destruction to appease their god. In silence, Michael observed these hidden figures in the forest, anticipating their move. As expected, trees on either side of the path suddenly crashed down, startling the horses. Michael gripped the carriage tightly, holding his position. But Billy, Micah and Leon were thrown off. Amidst the commotion, cries of babies and the panicked voices of refugees echoed from inside the carriage. Figures clad in pitch-black robes emerged from the forest, surrounding the carriage from all sides. Stay still. Don't move. Their orders were accompanied by the glint of crimson-red blades. Suddenly, a robed figure leaped onto the carriage and kicked Michael off. Pretending to stumble and fall, Michael yielded control of the carriage to the Agra worshippers. From his vantage point, he saw refugees, clad in tattered clothes and clutching belongings in small pouches, emerging from the carriage. Babies were held tightly in their arms, trembling with fear and shock. Agra has favored us. We're about to spill a lot of blood, one of the robed figures said with a sinister grin. With cautious movements, Michael lifted himself up from the ground as the Agra worshippers directed the refugees out of the carriage. The refugees were lined up and forced to kneel down alongside Michael. The refugees, their faces etched with shock and fear, cried out in a mixture of despair and desperation, pleading to the Agra worshippers to spare them. Please, we're just innocent families. I have a baby, please don't hurt her. Have mercy. We've lost everything. Tears streamed down their faces as they clung to one another, their voices trembling in terror. Their cries echoed in the forest, a heartbreaking chorus of anguish and vulnerability. The Agra worshippers, however, showed no sign of compassion. They reveled in the refugees' suffering, their laughter ringing with a cruel edge. You think your pleas matter to us? Pathetic mortals, your god won't save you now. The worshippers taunted and jeered, their eyes glinting with sadistic delight. One of them raised his blade high, the crimson-red steel reflecting the despair in the refugees' eyes. Billy, Micah and Leon were dealt swift blows, their faces struck with punches and then thrown into the crowd. The Agra worshippers quickly snatched their weapons, disarming them. Michael managed to evade their attention since his weapons were concealed within his armor, and his simple brown robes masked his true identity. The worshippers forced the refugees to sit in a row on their knees, their faces etched with terror and confusion. "Let us go, you monsters. These are innocent people." Billis' voice rose in defiance. The worshippers only responded with mocking laughter, their faces twisted with sadistic amusement. "Expecting mercy from us, are you? Insolent fools," sneered one of the worshippers, a heavily built man with a brutish demeanor. "The host should start earning badass points by saving these refugees. You will need worshippers in the future, and this seems like a good place to start your godhood." Michael was taken aback when he suddenly heard a voice in his head, the system that urged him to earn badass points by saving the refugees, seeing it as a way to gather worshippers for his own future godhood. The burly man leading the worshippers paused, his attention drawn to a red-haired woman clutching her baby and a little girl close. His gaze lingered on her, his intentions disturbingly evident. He spoke with a perverse grin, "Agra would delight in me slaughtering you three." The man's gaze lingered on the red-haired woman, his intentions evident. Michael sat beside her, waiting for the right moment to unleash his power upon the Agra worshippers. Chapter 1066, God of Rain's Kingdom. The Agra worshipper raised his sword, causing the woman to close her eyes and clutch her baby tightly. Beside her, the little girl's eyes squeezed shut in fear. "No." Billis' voice cracked with desperation as he tried to intervene. But just as the sword seemed poised to strike, it froze mid-air. The Agra worshipper's wrist was held firmly by a young man seated beside the intended victim. Another Agra worshipper approached with a mocking snicker, ready to attack the young man. However, his kick landed on the young man's back with no effect. Under the young man's grip, the first worshipper's sword dropped, and the mother cautiously opened her eyes, observing the scene. She turned her gaze toward the young man, finding an unspoken reassurance in his eyes. Amidst the refugees, shock was palpable as the young man dared to confront the Agra worshippers. "Arg!" The worshipper in the young man's grip growled in pain. Simultaneously, the one who had kicked the young man cried out in agony, clutching his injured leg. The mother, now facing the other Agra worshipper, witnessed the gruesome sight of the man's twisted and bloodied leg. "I am not playing hero," the young man finally spoke as he rose to his feet. "I am playing God," he declared with a chilling snicker. With swift precision, he twisted the worshipper's wrist, eliciting a scream of pain. "Close your eyes, honey," the young man addressed the little girl, who obediently shut her eyes. In an instant, he unsheathed his dark sword and swiftly cleaved the worshipper in half. The grotesque halves thudded to the ground, showering the refugees in a gruesome spray of blood. Screams of horror echoed from the horrified refugees, the image too much for them to bear. The young man turned to face the Agra worshipper who had been relentlessly kicking him. This worshipper was now on the ground, his leg broken and painful. Meanwhile, the remaining Agra worshippers surrounded the young man. "Cut him into pieces," they cried out, their sinister intentions clear. Despite his reluctance to reveal his true power, Michael recognized that this situation called for immediate action. The systems urging to save the refugees and potentially gain followers aligned with his own determination to rid the world of these Agra worshippers. Unbeknownst to him, this choice would set in motion a series of events that would lead him into a conflict with the cruel god Agra. "John?" Billis' voice held a mix of surprise and respect as he observed the young man in a new light. Michael exchanged a meaningful smile with the three who had aided the refugees. But his attention swiftly returned to the Agra worshippers, his expression hardening. "Luck hasn't favored you today. It's death," Michael declared as two of the Agra worshippers lunged at him. Yet, in the blink of an eye, their heads were severed from their bodies. The refugees were unable to comprehend the swift, otherworldly speed of Michael's movements. The remaining four Agra worshippers stood frozen in terror, sensing a power beyond their understanding but unaware of his true identity due to Marla's medallion suppressing his godly aura. "Bandits seem to be a constant problem, no matter which world I'm in," Michael mused, wiping the blood from his dark sword onto his arm. "Yuhui." The Agra worshippers stammered, their fear rendering them speechless. But before they could react, Michael lunged at them. In an instant, he cut down the remaining bandits as if they were mere obstacles. However, the leader of the Agra worshippers managed to take Billy hostage, using his sword to press against Billy's neck and issuing a threat to Michael. "If you dare take a step forward, I will cut open his throat," the last Agra worshipper shouted, holding Billy hostage. "What makes you think I'd give a damn about him?" Michael's unexpected response not only stunned the aggro worshipper but also left Billy, Micah, and Leon in disbelief. "John, please." Billy's voice trembled, a desperate plea for his life. "They'll take him with me." The aggro worshipper's desperation pushed him to the brink of killing Billy. Yet, as he made a move, dark beams shot forth from Michael's eyes, penetrating the aggro worshipper's skull. The worshipper's body froze momentarily before collapsing to the ground with a heavy thud. The refugees looked on, suddenly realizing that Michael was more than he appeared to be. While many in this world lacked cultivation or power, those blessed by the gods possessed the potential for such abilities. However, among them, only a fortunate few could attain higher levels of cultivation, let alone become an angel. Wealth, much like in the mortal realm, also played a pivotal role in cultivation. But it had never occurred to them that they might encounter a god in the flesh. As the lifeless bodies of the aggro worshippers lay in pools of their own blood, a new light shone upon Michael in the eyes of the refugees. Billy, Micah, and Leon approached him, their expressions a mix of fear and gratitude. The refugees, though slowly rising to their feet, still trembled from the shock of their near-death experience at the hands of the aggro worshippers. "Who are you?" Billy's voice wavered with a blend of apprehension and thankfulness. "For now, that's not important. Just remember this day," Michael replied calmly. He had no intention of unveiling his true identity just yet, even though the system was encouraging him to gather worshippers. Aware of his own current weakness compared to the higher-level gods and their angels, Michael chose to focus on learning about this world and growing stronger before facing them. "We should go before more of them show up," he suggested. "Thank you." The woman who had been on the brink of death at the hands of the aggro worshippers approached Michael, her voice laced with gratitude. To Michael's surprise, he felt an unfamiliar surge of power within himself. Although it didn't trigger any notifications from the system, he sensed its potency. "What is this feeling?" Michael questioned himself. "That is the power of reverence. The more worshippers you gather, the more your power will grow. Unlike you, who possess the system to gain strength, typical gods in this world tap into the power of worship to become stronger." The system revealed this new aspect to Michael. Unbeknownst to him, the realm of gods operated on a diverse scale of power and cultivation methods, a far cry from the straightforward dynamics of the mortal realm. Each god, and even mortals, followed distinct cultivation rules. Michael, being a god, had the ability to harness the power of worshippers. This power, however, could be derived not only from devoted worship but also from the grip of fear. The god Agra, in particular, drew strength from the terror of death and destruction, setting him apart from many other deities. Michael's introspective moment was abruptly interrupted by a resonating clap of thunder. His gaze shot upwards, where a streak of crimson-red lightning slashed across the sky. A familiar sight, akin to the lightning he had witnessed while with Darth, signaled to Michael that the more he employed his powers, the closer he drew the attention of the Pantheon. "Stay calm. Your focus should be on reaching Nimbosia and starting a new life," Michael reassured the shaken woman, motioning for the rest of the refugees to return to the safety of the carriage. "Let's go," he directed, leaping back onto the carriage's roof, mirroring his earlier stance. As the three drivers resettled themselves, the journey to Nimbosia, the realm of Raynar, the god of rain, resumed. "Prepare yourself, god of darkness. Your life is about to become significantly more complicated and challenging." Michael was caught off guard by the system's voice echoing in his mind. He peered into his pockets and found Vidora's eyes fixed on him, yet the Hydra remained silent. Something seemed to be troubling Vidora, but the creature refrained from voicing its concerns. The journey continued in quietude until the carriage finally emerged from the forest's embrace. Before Michael stretched a kingdom unlike any he had ever laid eyes upon. Towering stone walls shielded the cityscape beyond, masking its inner structures from view. Amidst this, a remarkable sight caught his attention, a grand edifice constructed from glass and adorned with gold accents. What struck Michael even more profoundly was the spectacle above the kingdom. Clusters of clouds had congregated, forming a colossal hand-like shape that generously showered rain upon the entire expanse. A river flowed around the city, its waters swelled by the constant downpour. However, what puzzled Michael was the conspicuous absence of thunderclaps or lightning streaks amidst the rainfall. "Nimbosia," Michael muttered softly, his eyes fixed on the distant cityscape on the horizon. "I hope they managed to find a better life behind those walls," Micah sighed, his eyes reflecting the skepticism born from witnessing the struggles of refugees. Often, their pursuit of a more promising life in a different kingdom ended up leading to even harsher circumstances. Such newcomers were frequently regarded as burdens, and their existence came with hardships. "I believe they will," Michael replied. Though he had no intention of taking on the role of their savior or playing the virtuous hero, he had a strong intuition that the refugees might indeed find better lives within the confines of Nimbosia's walls. Moreover, he was determined to uncover a way to challenge or vanquish a god. When that moment arrived, Raynar and the rest of the gods would have no choice but to bow before his might. As the carriage progressed toward the city gates, Michael's attention remained fixed on the sky. He pondered the extent of Raynar's power, marveling at the massive hand conjuring torrents of rain upon the kingdom. A deeper curiosity gnawed at him. Why Raynar would subject his own citizens to such relentless punishment? Think we'll cross paths again? Billis' inquiry interrupted Michael's thoughts. "You better hope not," Michael quipped, a hint of humor in his tone. Before Billy could respond, a deafening clap of thunder roared through the air. The sound was so intense, so terrifying, that it reverberated through the carriage, rattling its very frame. Michael instinctively looked skyward, his gaze tracing the trail of a lightning bolt slicing through the heavens. From that brilliant streak, a group of figures adorned in shimmering blue armor and boasting resplendent blue wings emerged, suspended in the sky. "Croner's angels," Billy muttered, his voice laced with unmistakable fear. In the wake of their appearance, Michael spotted yet another cluster of angels ascending from within the city's walls. Their wings were gray, their armor a somber shade of the same hue. With his keen eyes, Michael observed both groups of angels hovering in midair, poised for an imminent clash. "Damn it! We've got to get inside before they go all out," Billy exclaimed urgently, snapping the reins to hasten the horse's pace toward the safety of the city's embrace. Chapter 1067. Angels of Goddess Ava. Observing the celestial skirmish above, Billy snapped the reins in a bid to propel the carriage forward. Meanwhile, high in the heavens, the azure-clad angels of Croner clashed with their gray-armored counterparts serving Raynar. Croner's angels wielded weapons hewn from frozen lightning, while Raynar's emissaries brandished blades forged of ice. "Damn it!" Billis' exclamation resounded as the tempestuous winds intensified due to the celestial battle unfolding overhead. Within the carriage, Michael felt the mounting strength of the gale slow the horse's progress. Soon, the carriage swayed precariously, tilting to one side under the onslaught of the storm's fury. "The wind is too strong," Micah shouted as they struggled to maintain their balance. Reacting swiftly, Michael leapt to the ground and, with a determined effort, managed to steady the listing carriage. As he grappled with the vehicle, a bolt of lightning conjured by Croner's angels struck perilously close, mere meters away. "Fucking morons. They are going to kill everyone in this carriage," Iag's frustrated voice emanated from Michael's coat. "You should use your powers and carry the carriage to the city gates," Sarba Council urged Michael to draw upon his abilities. Yet, Michael resisted, wary of unveiling his godly powers and potentially alerting the Pantheon. While he exerted himself to keep the carriage upright, a curious jade radiance caught his attention in the sky above. Raising his gaze, Michael discerned an elven figure with undulating green tresses, porcelain complexion, and robes the hue of jade. Adorned with verdant wings, the ethereal being gracefully descended beside him. "Who are you?" Michael inquired, feigning his struggle to stabilize the swaying carriage. Unperturbed by his query, the green-haired elf favored him with a serene smile. Gently waving her hands, she conjured an emerald bubble that enveloped the carriage. Without delay, she seized Michael's hand, initiating an ascent towards the sky. As the horses neighed in distress, the elf directed a calming breeze their way, pacifying the agitated animals. Soon, the carriage, shielded by the elven enchantment, began to rise into the sky. Michael and the elf shared a prolonged gaze, yet neither uttered a single word. Safeguarded by the elf's intervention, they ascended toward the city through the azure expanse. Within the city's protective walls, the scene that met Michael's gaze was one of desolation. Except for the imposing structure crafted from glass and adorned with gilded embellishments, the remainder of the kingdom appeared haphazardly constructed, resembling a sprawling slum. Buildings stood crammed together without any semblance of a plan, devoid of side alleys or spacing. These houses appeared weathered, ancient, and poised to crumble at any given moment. The narrow streets lay deserted, and a putrid odor permeated the air, further intensified by the incessant downpour. Amid this grim setting, the celestial battle raged on in the heavens, where lightning streaks and frosty blades clashed. The impact of their skirmish toppled a few buildings, their collapse accompanied by heart-rending cries from within. Inquiring about the chaos below, Michael turned to the green-haired woman. "Aren't you going to intervene?" Her response was calm. "They will tend to them." Michael's gaze descended, observing the emergence of green-robed figures rushing to the scene. These elves, emanating a dim green radiance, initiated rescue operations, pulling people from the debris. However, some among them shook their heads, signaling that not all had been fortunate enough to survive. As Michael lifted his eyes, the celestial conflict continued unabated, the battling angels seemingly heedless of the city's inhabitants. Michael reflected on his own experiences in Nagaland, where he too had fought without considering the well-being of the citizens. Yet the Guardian Guild had been there to evacuate people. Here, however, these citizens lacked such protection. Gradually, the elven woman guided the carriage's descent, and they alighted before a structure fashioned from verdant stones. "Escort the refugees into the temple," the elven woman instructed Micah, Billy, and Leon. To Michael's surprise, they complied without question, immediately springing into action. "Rest within the temple. You must be exhausted," the elven woman suggested, her hand moving towards Michael's forehead. However, before she could touch him, Michael intercepted her wrist. "I'm fine," Michael reassured her. The elf smiled, recognizing the apprehension in Michael's eyes regarding her true identity. "Come with me into the temple," the elven woman invited, leading the way as Michael followed. The refugees conveyed their gratitude with nods, silently acknowledging Michael's presence as he accompanied the elf into the temple. Inside, soft candlelight illuminated the space, permeated by a delicate, soothing fragrance. Yet what truly astonished Michael was the temple's interior spaciousness. It was as though some enchantment, possibly runes, had been employed to manipulate the very fabric of space, rendering the temple considerably more expansive within than its exterior dimensions suggested. Within this temple sanctuary, injured refugees rested on the floor, tended to by green-robed elves who skillfully attended to their wounds. "You don't appear to be a typical refugee or someone in need of assistance. What is your story?" the elf inquired, her tone gentle. "You haven't introduced yourself either," Michael responded, his curiosity piqued. "I am Faith, an angel of Ava, the goddess of healing," the elf revealed. Michael pondered for a few moments, his thoughts turning over. After some contemplation, he made up his mind to enlist Faith's assistance in locating Marlis worshippers. Ensuring the safe passage of Marlis followers back to her was paramount, as it required finding the individual among them who possessed an artifact from Marley, capable of opening a portal to her forest. "I'm John. I've come here to find the worshippers of Goddess Marley," Michael revealed, his decision finally made after careful consideration. "Worshippers of Goddess Marley?" Faith appeared surprised, yet a swift assessment of Michael seemed to provide her with some insight. "You don't strike me as Marlis' typical angel," Faith commented, a hint of amusement in her voice. "Marlis angel," Michael thought wryly to himself. "I'm not. I just need to locate them and ensure they escape Nimbosia before they're caught in the crossfire of the angelic battle," Michael explained, gesturing towards the temple's shuddering walls, a consequence of the ongoing celestial conflict. "Do you happen to know where I can find Marlis worshippers?" Michael inquired. In response, Faith let out a sigh, her eyes briefly revealing a glint of sorrow that Michael couldn't ignore. "Unfortunately, I do know. However, it won't be a straightforward task to locate them," Faith replied. Michael sighed in acknowledgement. "Believe me, nothing in my life comes easy," Michael's sigh carried the weight of his experiences. "If you don't mind my asking, why are you extending aid to Goddess Marley?" Faith's curiosity prompted her to question Michael's motives. "Just repaying a debt," Michael offered, opting to keep his motivations guarded. The truth was, his intention behind helping Marley was to secure her alliance. In the impending struggles against Dagon and the Pantheon, Michael knew he required allies, given that most gods wouldn't readily side with the god of darkness. Gaining allies was crucial for his cause. Faith's nod was slow and contemplative, but her eyes betrayed a sense of skepticism about Michael. As a non-god, she couldn't naturally discern his true nature. At most, she might assume he was an angel or a formidable higher-level cultivator. To consider him a god would require witnessing the full extent of his powers, something he wasn't eager to reveal. "Where can I find them?" Michael inquired, directing the conversation back to the matter at hand. "They're being held in Raynar's temple," Faith replied with a hint of sadness in her voice. Michael's intuition wasn't wrong. There was an undercurrent of trouble in the situation. "It doesn't sound promising," he prodded further. "It's not. God Raynar is losing ground to Cronar in their celestial conflict." He's desperate for continuous worship, hence the city's emptiness, Faith explained, her tone carrying a mix of sympathy and disdain. Under the king's orders, Raynar's loyal follower, the lackey, has commanded the citizens to remain indoors and worship Raynar fervently. Meanwhile, Marlis worshippers have been forcibly taken to Raynar's temple and are being coerced into becoming his followers, Faith revealed, a touch of disgust in her words. In the realm of gods, converting one god's worshippers into another's was considered a malevolent act. However, if the targeted god wasn't part of the pantheon, their actions against each other's followers often went unnoticed by the higher powers. As Marley wasn't part of the pantheon and Raynar was, the latter could impose his authority over Marlis worshippers without much consequence. How does that process work? Are they subjected to mind control or some other manipulation? Michael's curiosity prompted him to inquire. That's certainly possible, but I don't believe they've reached that stage yet. It's more likely they are undergoing physical torment, Faith responded. For a brief moment, Michael fell into contemplation, mentally recording the information he had received. Yet, abruptly, Faith's words trailed off, and her gaze fixed on him. But you don't need to delve into those specifics. Rescuing them from Raynar's temple is a nearly impossible feat. Even the king would have little sway in this matter. My advice is to turn around and leave the kingdom, Faith suggested. Caught between his curiosity and his commitment to saving Marlis worshippers, Michael hesitated momentarily. Ultimately, he decided to embrace the risk and venture into the temple himself. The driving force behind Michael's decision was his pursuit of badass points. He recognized that playing it overly safe and timid wouldn't earn him the kind of recognition he desired. At the very least, I can assess the situation. If it proves too risky, I'll relay the message to Marley, Michael affirmed. His casual reference to Goddess Marley sparked a flicker of uncertainty within Faith. Well, I can't prevent you from aiding those in need. It's not in Goddess Ava's nature to inhibit such actions, Faith acknowledged. As another tremor rumbled through the air, Michael couldn't help but ask, any idea when this war might stop? The intensity of the angels' battle was palpable, escalating with each passing second. I truly don't know. The timeline depends on the Pantheon's intervention. It's uncommon for them to stand aloof during a confrontation between two of their own, Faith replied, her tone tinged with doubt and hesitation. The more Michael learned about the Pantheon, the deeper his confusion grew. Something seemed to be diverting the Pantheon's attention from their responsibilities. While the Pantheon was undoubtedly engaged in handling Dagon, the fact remained that Dagon couldn't yet breach the realm of gods. This led Michael to question what force could be holding the Pantheon back from fulfilling their duties and what might be preventing the gods from abandoning their domains. Chapter 1068. Being the stealthy assassin once again. When night descended upon Nimbosia, Michael emerged from Goddess Ava's temple, bidding farewell to Faith. The clash between the angels still raged above, filling the sky with streaks of lightning and bursts of thunder. The flashes of Cronar's angels' lightning illuminated Michael's path as he walked. Thankfully, the streets are clear of citizens, Iag quipped from within Michael's coat pocket. To blend into the darkness, Michael had swapped his earlier brown robes for a black coat over his armor. These gods and angels seem like real troublemakers, Sarba grumbled. Nithrol did mention that the realm of gods is far worse than the mortal realm, Michael recalled as he moved along the rooftops, carefully avoiding the gaze of the battling angels. After several tense minutes, Michael reached the imposing temple. Close up, it appeared even grander and more imposing than from a distance. The entire structure was constructed from glass, adorned with opulent gold accents. The glass bore a deep black tint that prevented Michael from peering inside with his naked eyes. Utilizing his X-ray vision, Michael spotted Raynar's angels patrolling around the temple's exterior. There's someone inside, tied to a chair and being subjected to torture, Michael murmured, his X-ray vision revealing a figure bound in the center of the temple. However, the features of the figure remained obscured. It's likely one of Marlis' worshippers, Iag surmised. Agreeing, Michael inched closer to the temple. His inherent ability as the god of darkness rendered him nearly invisible in shadowy places. This wasn't considered the use of his powers, just a natural attribute. Blending into the darkness, Michael stealthily approached the temple. However, the main entrance was flanked by two gray-armored guards, their level of cultivation hidden from Michael's view. To discern such details, he would require a specific skill from the system or a rare artifact native to this realm. We obviously can't barge through the main door, Iag suggested, glancing upwards and spotting an opening. Perhaps we could fly in through that window, Iag suggested, but Sarba quickly dismissed the idea. "No, I sense the presence of runes around us," Sarba interjected. Activating his X-ray eyes, Michael spotted shimmering runes in their vicinity. Thanks to his time spent with Eladir, the accomplished 6-star rune master, he could faintly recognize the symbols. "These runes have been placed here to prevent anyone from flying around the temple," Michael explained. "You saw the runes? Are they similar to the runes in the mortal realm?" Iag inquired with curiosity. "Not exactly, but there are some similarities," Michael replied. "Then how do you plan to ascend?" Iag pressed, to which Michael grinned and rolled up his sleeves, revealing the Mark III grappling hook on his forearm. With a swift motion, he aimed at the edge above and fired the grappling hook. The hook firmly caught onto the edge, propelling Michael upwards. Inside the temple, Michael crouched on the edge of a beam, peering down at the scene below. Carefully navigating along the beams that stretched across the ceiling, he observed the activity below. "That doesn't look like Marlis worshippers unless her followers dress like kings," Iag noted with a frown. Michael concurred and focused on the man being tortured. Clad in red robes embellished with precious gems and adorned with a gold crown, the man was a stark contrast to what Marlis worshippers would appear to be. "You failed your master." The hulking brute, an orc with pale green skin, taunted the man tied to the chair. Towering at 7 feet, the orc exuded an imposing and fearsome aura. "Please. I have nothing but loyalty towards his grace. Please." The man pleaded desperately. "How is it then that his grace's carriage was attacked by Croner's angels? Don't you know what it carried?" The orc questioned, running his fingers across the man's face. "His grace made you the king of Nimbosia, entrusting you with the protection of his possessions. Now that you've failed, why should his grace spare you?" The orc jeered. Michael's suspicions were confirmed, but he was taken aback by the revelation. "The king?" Michael murmured in shock. "Please. His grace must command his angels to find the culprits." The king implored, but the orc's laughter resounded. "Ah, what did you think his grace was? An investigator? No, his grace doesn't stoop to that. It's your fault the carriage went missing and you will pay the price," the orc declared, applauding mockingly. With a wave of his hand, a leather bag materialized over the king's head. "No. No. No." The king's panic grew, and he struggled against the ropes that bound his arms and legs. The orc grinned and kicked the chair, sending the king crashing to the ground, his face shrouded by the leather bag. "Let me enlighten you on what's about to unfold, just to pass the time," the orc chuckled with sadistic glee. Unbeknownst to both the orc and the temple's guards, Michael silently bore witness to the brutal scene from his hidden vantage point above. The orc leaned closer to the king, his voice dripping with cruelty. "You see, your majesty, there's a method by which each drop of water can feel like a blade, a relentless torment that chips away at your sanity. A drip here, a drip there, it doesn't seem like much, does it?" The king's muffled protests and frantic breathing were barely audible beneath the leather bag that covered his head. He squirmed against the ropes binding him to the chair, his body trembling with a mixture of fear and desperation. "Drip, drip, drip," the orc continued with a sadistic rhythm. "The anticipation becomes unbearable as you wait for that next drop to fall. The cold sensation slices through your thoughts, shattering your mind bit by bit." The king's pleas for mercy became more frantic, his voice strained and cracking with desperation. He tugged at his restraints, his struggles growing more violent as he tried to free himself from the torment that awaited him. "Please, I beg you. Mercy." The king's voice wavered, his words punctuated by the erratic rhythm of the orc's description. "Drip, drip, drip," the orc repeated, his tone unyielding. "And as time stretches on, the drops become a constant reminder of your helplessness. Your mind races, seeking respite that never comes." The king's struggles intensified, his body racked with the anguish of his impending torture. He twisted and contorted in a desperate attempt to escape, his fear palpable even through the leather bag. "Make it stop. He'll do anything you ask," the king pleaded, his voice breaking under the weight of his terror. The orc's malicious grin widened as he relished the king's torment. "Ah, but you see, your majesty, this is the fate you've chosen for yourself. The choice to fail, to disappoint his grace, led you to this moment." The king's cries of desperation grew louder, his pleas echoing off the walls of the temple. His body convulsed as if each drop of imaginary water struck him with searing intensity. "Drip, drip, drip," the orc's voice continued, a chilling refrain that underscored the king's agony. Tears mixed with sweat as the king's struggles weakened, his strength fading under the weight of the mental torture he was subjected to. The anticipation of each non-existent drop had fractured his resolve, driving him to the brink of madness. And in the shadows above, Michael watched in grim silence, his heart heavy with a mixture of pity and shock at the cruel scene unfolding below. The orc meticulously created a small hole beneath the leather bag, a hole so tiny that it allowed only a solitary droplet to escape at irregular intervals. Michael's keen eyes picked up on a rune etched onto the leather, a rune responsible for randomizing the timing of each water droplet's descent. As the first droplet touched the king's forehead, his agonized scream reverberated throughout the temple. The sound was visceral, as if he had been struck by a hammer. The orc, his face twisted into a sadistic grin, delighted in the torment he was inflicting. He shifted his gaze toward the soldiers standing nearby, their grim expressions betraying no emotion. "Once this old fool's suffering comes to an end, take care of Marlis worshippers," the orc commanded before vanishing from the temple in an instant. The soldiers, with silent obedience, acknowledged his orders without a word. They continued their patrols, moving stealthily through the temple's halls. Amidst the tense atmosphere, the only sounds that punctuated the air were the haunting echoes of water droplets and the king's anguished screams. Michael recognized the method well. It was the dreaded dripping machine used for torture on Earth. The realization that such a method was being employed in this world left Michael taken aback. "Are we going to save him?" Iag's voice trembled with uncertainty. "It depends on how much he could help us. But truthfully, there's little point in rescuing him." Michael's tone turned cold and calculating. As he considered the idea of saving the king, Michael knew it was a futile endeavor. Even if he were to intervene, Raynar would simply replace the king with another pawn. Moreover, leaving the king alive could risk betrayal and expose his intentions. "So, how do you plan to rescue Marlis worshippers?" Iag inquired. "With good old-fashioned methods. Eliminate everyone except one and then extract information from him." Michael's smile was chilling in its intent. With that, he unsheathed his dark swords. Positioning himself on the beams, he watched the soldiers below with the aura of a deadly assassin. His dark armor and hair, fluttering in the air, added an air of lethal charm to his presence. Michael's blade swiftly dispatched the unfortunate soldier who happened to be directly beneath the beam where he crouched. After ensuring no prying eyes were upon him, he descended from the beam, striking the soldier through the head from behind. With the lifeless body in tow, he returned to his concealed vantage point above. Quite swift, Iag couldn't help but be impressed by Michael's efficiency. "Ever since I started relying on spells and powers, I forgot how satisfying it is to take someone down with old-fashioned stealth," Michael remarked, a touch of nostalgia in his voice. "One down, 8 to go," Michael said, cracking his neck. The cacophony of the king's screams and the ongoing battle among the angels provided the necessary cover for Michael's actions. Oblivious to their impending fate, the gray-armored soldiers continued their patrol within the temple premises. Chapter 1069, God of Death. With practiced precision, Michael began his silent takedown of the remaining soldiers. He observed their patrol routes carefully, noting the patterns they followed. Each soldier had a specific path to walk, and Michael exploited this predictability to his advantage. As the king's agonized screams echoed through the temple, Michael moved swiftly and silently along the beams, using the shadows to his advantage. His dark armor seemed to merge with the darkness, making him nearly invisible. His movements were fluid, like a ghost gliding through the air. The second soldier walked beneath him, and Michael seized the opportunity. He dropped down, his blade finding its mark before the soldier could react. The body was quickly hauled up onto the beam out of sight. Michael approached the third soldier's path, timing his movements to coincide with the soldier's turn. Just as the soldier passed beneath him, Michael executed a swift and precise strike. A paralyzing poison coated his blade, ensuring the soldier wouldn't raise an alarm. He repeated this tactic with the next two soldiers, eliminating them swiftly and silently. With 4 soldiers down, Michael continued his deadly dance with the remaining 4. He watched them closely, studying their patrol routes and waiting for the right moment. His movements were calculated, his strikes precise. He utilized a combination of poisons, stealth, and the element of surprise to neutralize each threat. As Michael's swift blade dispatched the 6th soldier, he noticed a shift in the king's screams. Amidst the pained cries, the king's voice took on a note of desperation. "Help, please, anyone." The pleas for assistance were a grim reminder of the man's suffering. But Michael's focus remained on his task. He moved with practiced ease, utilizing the ceiling beams to both hide the bodies and ascend higher within the temple. For the seventh soldier, Michael employed another paralyzing poison. The soldier's movements became sluggish, his eyes widening in realization before he fell to the ground, lifeless. Michael quickly disposed of the body and continued his ascent. The eighth soldier's patrol route brought him close to the king. The king's muffled cries grew more desperate as Michael approached. Michael's blade struck true and the soldier fell silently. Michael's movements were swift, precise, and calculated, avoiding any unnecessary noise or spilling of blood. Finally, only one soldier remained. Michael watched the soldier's route, biding his time. He needed information and this soldier would provide it. As the soldier approached, Michael opted for a different approach. He used a dart coated in a sleeping agent, rendering the soldier unconscious without killing him. With the temple now devoid of threats, Michael turned his attention to the unconscious soldier remaining. The king's desperate pleas for help fell on deaf ears as Michael moved swiftly and efficiently. He needed answers and this soldier held the key. Ignoring the king's cries, Michael hoisted the unconscious soldier over his shoulder, his steps silent as he moved away from the gruesome scene. He needed a secure location for the impending interrogation. In a secluded chamber, Michael laid the soldier down. The man stirred groggily, his eyes widening in shock as he took in his surroundings and the dark figure before him. Who are you?" the soldier stammered, fear evident in his voice. Michael's helmeted gaze remained steady. "That's not important right now. What I need to know is the whereabouts of Marley's worshippers." The soldier's confusion deepened. "Marley? I don't know what you're talking about." Michael's patience was wearing thin. He knew how to break even the most stubborn individuals. From his equipment, he produced a small syringe containing a pain-enhancing substance. Injecting it into the soldier's arm, he watched as discomfort twisted the man's features. The soldier's eyes shot open and he tried to cry out, but Michael swiftly placed his gloved hand over the man's mouth. "Listen carefully. I'm only going to ask once. Where are Marley's worshippers being held?" The soldier squirmed and wriggled his legs, a mixture of fear and pain evident on his face. He glanced at Michael with wide, terrified eyes and finally, he gave a reluctant nod. "In the secret room beneath the temple," the soldier admitted, his voice trembling. "How do I access it?" Michael's tone was icy, his patience hanging by a thread. The soldier pointed a trembling finger at a seemingly ordinary lamp fixed to the wall. "Rotate the lamp clockwise and a passage will open." Michael's dark eyes narrowed as he processed the information. He could tell the soldier was telling the truth, but he had one more card to play. "Remember, I can easily end your life if you're lying to me." The soldier's lips quivered, his gaze locking onto Michael's helmet. "You have no idea what you've done. You'll regret this." A mirthless smile tugged at the corner of Michael's lips. "I've done many regrettable things. Your fate is just another one." With a swift, decisive motion, Michael silenced the soldier forever, ending his life. He didn't have time for further hesitation or sentimentality. The soldier's usefulness had come to an end, and Marley's worshippers awaited his rescue. "Ghost, I sense someone approaching us. Someone powerful." Sarba warning reached Michael's ears, though his own scans had failed to detect any presence. Suddenly, all the lights within the temple were extinguished by an unseen force. The temple's heavy doors sealed shut with a muffled thud. In the darkness, Michael witnessed the guards stationed at the entrance collapse. His attention then turned back to the king, whose agonized cries continued to pierce the air. Just as he was about to move, a cold sensation brushed against his armor. A voice, dripping with a deadly aura, slithered from behind him. Well, what do we have here?" The voice was sneaky yet laced with danger. Michael felt a blade pressing against his armor, testing its strength. He tightened his grip on his dark swords, ready for any sudden moves. He knew he was dealing with a formidable opponent, one who had managed to approach undetected. "Thank you for adding a touch of excitement to this dreary temple." The man's tone was oddly amused. He continued to exert pressure on the blade, but Michael's armor held firm. "Nice armor," the man commented, acknowledging the challenge Michael's defenses presented. "Who are you?" Michael's voice was firm, his gaze locked on the figure behind him. He made no sudden movements, recognizing the threat this stranger posed. An assassin of your caliber should know that the one holding the blade tends to be the one asking questions. You've orchestrated quite the spectacle here, a masterful display of assassination without alerting the guards. But I must admit, I'm more intrigued by you. The man's words dripped with intrigue and a twisted sense of admiration. Pushing Michael slightly forward, the unseen assassin allowed him to pivot around, facing his enigmatic adversary. As he turned, the veil of invisibility was lifted, revealing the assassin in all his sinister glory. Cloaked in dark crimson robes, the figure emanated an aura of malevolence. In his hand gleamed a blood-red dagger, its edges glinting ominously. Michael's gaze was drawn to a strand of raven-black hair that cascaded from under the hood, framing a face that remained enshrouded in shadow. Yet, what caught Michael's attention were the eyes, glistening with a crimson hue that seemed to pierce through the darkness. "Well, this is an unexpected twist." The assassin's voice was silk and steel combined, a blend of amusement and intrigue. "I hadn't anticipated stumbling upon a fellow practitioner of the art." A wry smile tugged at Michael's lips. "So, what gave it away? The dark attire, the blades, or the fact that I'm sneaking around a guarded temple?" The assassin's smile grew devilish, a gleam in his red-tinted eyes. "Oh, it's more than just appearances. There's a certain energy about those who walk in the shadows. A familiarity, a kinship. It takes one to know one, you see." Michael cracked his neck and regarded the assassin. "So, what's the next act in this little performance?" The assassin's smile remained, a mixture of amusement and something else that was hard to decipher. "Don't worry, I'm not here to kill you," he replied, his voice dripping with a sense of detached amusement. "You're not my target." Michael's eyebrows raised slightly in surprise. "Then who?" The assassin's gaze shifted to the king, who was still bound and writhing in agony. "He called for my God, and my God sent me to answer his prayers." With a sudden blur of motion, the assassin moved around the temple, his figure becoming a fluid dance of shadows. Michael's eyes struggled to track his every movement. The assassin's voice echoed through the temple, laced with a mocking tone. "You're good, but you need to work on your speed and efficiency." As the assassin continued to dart around, his voice reached Michael, amused yet oddly sincere. "I'll have my eyes on you, friend. And if there's an opening in my house, I might give you a heads up." Confusion filled Michael's expression. "What house?" The assassin's smile deepened. "You'll know when the time comes." A question burned in Michael's mind. "The King Raynar's worshipper. Did Raynar send you?" The assassin's laughter filled the air, a chilling sound that seemed to reverberate through the darkness. "Oh, the king now wants nothing but death. He calls for death, and my God sent me to answer his prayers." A frown creased Michael's forehead. "Your God?" The assassin's amusement was evident as he replied, "I am an angel of death." Chapter 1070. New system functionality. Michael's frown deepened as he processed the revelation that the assassin before him was indeed an angel of death. The shock was palpable on his face, and the assassin seemed to take amusement in it. "Normally, encountering an angel of death would be your final moment," the assassin taunted, a smugness underlying his words. "But for you, I'll make an exception." "What?" Michael's curiosity pushed him to question, seeking understanding. However, before an answer came, the assassin's movement caught him off guard. In a blur of blue, the assassin appeared behind Michael. Reacting swiftly, Michael spun around, only to see the assassin swiftly retreat a few feet away. "He's showing off," Iag muttered, clearly unimpressed. The assassin then took a moment to showcase his eerie fascination with his dagger. Licking its surface with an almost sickening relish, he charged at Michael with the dagger held high. Michael's instincts took over, and he raised his dark sword to block the incoming strike. "Slow," the assassin remarked casually as he attempted a swift slash toward Michael's throat. Reacting with lightning reflexes, Michael bent backward, his body forming a near-perfect arc to evade the dagger's edge. He countered with a powerful swing of his leg, aiming a kick at the assassin. "Nice flexibility," the assassin commented, sounding like he was critiquing a performance. In the blink of an eye, the assassin leaped into the air, disappearing from Michael's direct line of sight. "Where is he? Can you sense him, Sarba?" Iag asked, remaining in Michael's black coat. "No," Sarba said. Sarba's inability to sense the assassin's location added to the challenge. Michael activated his X-ray vision, scanning his surroundings for any trace of the elusive opponent. Yet, the assassin managed to surprise him once again, materializing above his head. Reacting on pure instinct, Michael lunged backward, narrowly evading the assassin's aerial attack. The assassin adjusted his trajectory with uncanny agility, delivering a powerful kick to Michael's chest that sent him hurtling through the air. Gritting his teeth, Michael quickly regained his bearings, using his momentum to stabilize himself. He charged forward, channeling every ounce of his physical speed into his movements. His dark sword sliced through the air with deadly precision, a testament to his combat prowess. "You're quite the swordsman, but your skill with other weapons could use work," the assassin casually critiqued Michael's swordsmanship. With an effortless grace, the assassin deftly dodged and parried Michael's attacks. Abruptly, he halted his movements, his gaze locking onto Michael as a smile graced his lips. "He'll be keeping an eye on you," the assassin's words hung in the air, a promise of future encounters before he vanished from sight. The next moment he materialized beside the king, who was still lost in his agonized screams. The king's frantic cries for help seemed to take no notice of the angel of death at his side. Michael watched, a silent observer, as the assassin's blade traced chilling lines across the king's face. The sensation of the cold blade seemed to snap the king back from the brink of madness. Who are you?" The king's trembling voice quivered with fear, but his question was cut short by the swift, brutal motion of the assassin's blade. Blood sprayed, the king's gurgled attempt at speech silenced as his throat was ruthlessly cut. The pool of red expanded beneath the lifeless form. As the angel of death rose from the king's body, his gaze locked onto Michael's. The temple seemed to hang heavy with the stench of death. The assassin's words were a chilling warning as he spoke directly to Michael. "This temple reeks of death. Don't disappoint me by dying." His voice carried a hint of amusement and finality. A dark crimson-red smoke enveloped the assassin, obscuring him from view. And then, as quickly as he had appeared, the smoke dissipated into nothingness, taking the angel of death with it. After the angel of death's departure, Michael's brow furrowed, and he pivoted toward the lamp as the assassin had instructed. The prospect of the temple reeking of death weighed heavily on his thoughts, a mystery he intended to unravel. For now, his purpose was clear: to investigate the hidden path that might lead him to Marlis worshippers. Sarba's voice carried a heavy undertone as he questioned, what did he mean by reeking of death? The query echoed in the air, joined by Iag's curiosity. And why did he say you're quite the swordsman but your skill with other weapons could use work? How can he know you suck at other weapons? Iag's curiosity danced with a touch of mischief, almost prompting Michael to swat her playfully on the head, were it not for their grim circumstances. "We will find out," Michael responded with a steady calmness. He approached the lamp and, following the soldier's instructions, turned it. A low, ominous creak echoed as a hidden door opened before him. The revealed passage led downward into darkness, and as Michael descended, the air seemed to grow heavier with the scent of blood. It stirred a growing unease within him. Despite his internal tension, he pushed forward, the need to locate Marlis worshippers driving him. "We should be on high alert," Sarba's cautionary words were apt, serving as a reminder of the potential dangers lurking in the shadows. Amidst the hush, the scent of blood invaded Michael's senses, heightening his alertness. The echoes of their footfalls reverberated off the walls, while his environmental scanning revealed no signs of life nearby. An unsettling sensation crept over him, a gnawing doubt that the soldier's information might have been fabricated. "Something's not right here," Michael murmured, his instincts on high alert as he moved around a corner, further descending into the dark underbelly of the temple. The next turn revealed a scene that froze him in his tracks. Looking at the horrifying scene, even the usually calm and quiet Kane widened his eyes. "What the fuck happened here?" Iag's voice trembled with shock and horror. The dimly illuminated room before Michael was a chilling tableau of gore. Blood seemed to coat every surface, and the air was heavy with the stench of death. His eyes scanned the gruesome scene, revealing bodies nailed to walls and strewn across the floor, their tortured forms bearing the marks of unimaginable cruelty. Amidst the grisly tableau, Michael's gaze settled on a lifeless woman, a faint glow emanating from the medallion around her neck. As he cautiously approached, his steps mingling with the blood underfoot, he reached out to pick up the tree-shaped medallion. A pulse of energy coursed through him as he held it in his hand. "They must be Marlis worshippers," Sarba's voice trembled, the weight of the tragedy evident in his tone. Even his normally sharp demeanor was softened by the heartrending scene before them. "The damn orc was talking about their corpses." Iag's voice quivered with anger, her frustration at the senseless violence palpable. Michael wasn't prone to sentimentality or shedding tears, having taken lives when necessary, but even he felt a pang of empathy for Marlis followers. The fate they met was a gruesome one, and as far as he was concerned, no innocent beings deserved such a horrifying end. "Raynar clearly meant business," Michael muttered, his gaze sweeping over the carnage and devastation. "I now understand why the angel of death mentioned the reek of death," Sarba observed somberly. The weight of the situation pressed down on them, leaving Iag seeking answers. So, what's our next move? There is nothing we can do. We should report this to Marley and let her decide how to handle it. Michael's response was a mixture of resignation and practicality. Iag, however, held a different perspective. I think we should do something, Ghost. Like what? Challenge the entire pantheon of corrupt gods and try to purge this world of evil? Michael chuckled darkly. Listen, I feel bad for them, I do. But we're not strong enough to take on the gods. Hell, we have no idea about the full extent of their powers. Any wrong move and we will have gods and angels chasing us, Michael countered, his voice laced with a touch of frustration at Iag's impulsive suggestion. However, as Michael uttered those words, a sudden headache throbbed in his mind, accompanied by the system's voice echoing in his consciousness. The host should seek justice for the innocent. The host has unlocked quest functionality. The quest, God Killer, has commenced. Seek retribution against Raynar and avenge Marlis worshippers. Upon completing the quest, the host will receive the location of a hidden base of operation in the realm of gods. Michael stood in a mix of surprise and shock as the words from the system reverberated in his mind. While it wasn't the first time the system had provided suggestions or guidance, this instance felt different. It was as if the system was compelling him to undertake the quest and see it through. You won't be able to accumulate badass points in the realm of gods as you did in the mortal realm. Embrace your destiny as the assassin you were meant to be and establish your legacy within the realm of gods. The system's voice resonated with a sense of finality. Michael refrained from discussing his decision with Vidora and silently resolved to undertake the quest. After a brief pause, he exited the system interface and cast one last gaze upon the grim scene of lifeless bodies. His attention then shifted to the tree-shaped medallion he held in his hand. Focusing his intent on the medallion, he activated his analyzer skill. The medallion of Marley possesses the ability to conjure a vortex leading directly to Marlis Forest. This medallion can only be used once, relayed the analyzer skill's information to Michael. Taking a steadying breath, he injected a thread of arch energy into the medallion and triggered its power. Soon, a swirling vortex materialized before him. Let's go, Michael uttered resolutely and stepped into the vortex, his form vanishing from the confines of Raynar's temple. In an instant, the world transformed as he emerged within the embrace of Marlis Forest. Sunlight filtered through the lush canopy above, a stark contrast to the nighttime he had left behind in Nimbosia. Marley, Michael's voice reverberated, carrying across the expanse of the divine forest. He pivoted, his eyes falling upon the portal which promptly dissipated, severing his connection to Nimbosia. As he turned back, several figures emerged from the shadows of the forest, their forms gradually becoming clear. To his astonishment, their attire mirrored that of the gray-armored angels he had encountered in Nimbosia, complete with wings reminiscent of Raynar's servants. A voice cut through the air, laden with lethal intent. The God of Darkness. The words dripped with a chilling welcome. The speaker removed his helmet, unveiling an elven countenance adorned with silver hair and pointed ears. I heard no one extended a welcome to you in the realm of gods. Let's rectify that, the elven angel announced, his hand moving to draw his sword. Chapter 1071 Shocking turn of events. 8 angels encircled Michael, their weapons drawn in a synchronized display of deadly intent. The glint of swords, spears, and maces punctuated the charged atmosphere. In the face of this formidable assembly, Michael kept his composure, his posture poised for whatever would unfold. What happened to Marley? Michael's voice was resolute, his eyes locked onto the elf who had revealed his identity. He needed answers, and the presence of these angels boded ill for the goddess he sought. The elven angel's lips curled into a taunting smile. You needn't worry about Marley, he said, his tone edged with malice. The reply was cryptic, unsettling Michael further. As the tension escalated, the angels tightened their formation, readying for conflict. Their elemental weapons gleamed ominously, exuding a premonition of the impending battle. Michael's instincts surged, a testament to his honed skills as an assassin, and his fingers flexed around the hilts of his dark swords. It was then that the elven angel spoke again, his voice dripping with mockery. You really thought you can waltz into our world and go undetected? He chuckled, the sound a mixture of amusement and condescension. We know what you are, the god of darkness, the harbinger of chaos. Michael's eyes flickered with a blend of surprise and unease. How did they know about him? We aren't as ignorant as you might believe, the elven angel continued, his voice low and measured. We've observed your actions, seen your defiance. But do you truly comprehend the powers that reside within this realm? The 8 angels shifted, their stance shifting to one of readiness. Michael could sense an aura around them, a resonance with their weapons. A growing energy that mirrored Raynar's essence. "We are at the elemental attunement realm," the elven angel explained, his voice tinged with satisfaction. "Raynar, the level 4 god of this realm, granted us a sliver of his power. It allows us to temporarily tap into his strength, to channel his dominion over nature and elements." Michael's mind raced, piecing together the implications of their revelation. These angels weren't merely powerful on their own, they were empowered by Raynar himself. The fight ahead had just become infinitely more challenging. "This is our world," the elven angel declared, his companions radiating an intense energy. "And you stand alone." Suddenly, as if in perfect synchronization, the 8 angels surged forward, a deadly whirlwind of motion converging upon Michael from every angle. Their movements were a blur, their wings propelling them at astonishing speed, leaving streaks of light in their wake. The elven angel's voice taunted him, the words carrying on the wind like a venomous melody. "Rogue god, did you think you could stand against us? You dare challenge the might of Raynar?" Michael's instincts surged, his senses honed by years of training and countless battles. He reacted swiftly, his dark swords dancing in his hands as he deflected the first onslaught of attacks. But the angels were relentless, their strikes precise and coordinated. A blow from a mace was intercepted by Michael's crossed blades, the impact reverberating through his arms. Before he could recover, a gust of wind signaled the elven angel's approach. The elf's fist met Michael's side, and the force sent him hurtling through the air, crashing into a tree that splintered upon impact. Gritting his teeth against the pain, Michael pushed off from the wreckage of the tree and met the next wave of assaults head-on. His movements were a dance of darkness, his swords weaving intricate patterns as he countered their attacks. But the angels' speed and power were undeniable, their elemental weapons lashing out with a potency that threatened to overwhelm him. The clash of metal against metal echoed through the forest, a symphony of violence and determination. Michael's strikes were precise, his movements fluid as he parried and struck, seeking vulnerabilities amidst the storm of attacks. Yet the angels' synchronized assault proved a formidable challenge, their seamless coordination closing off any openings. With each exchange, Michael's body absorbed the impact of blows, bruises and cuts accumulating like badges of honor. The elven angel's laughter seemed to hang in the air, a constant reminder of the odds stacked against him. The elven angel lunged again, his speed leaving trails of ethereal light. Michael anticipated the attack, sidestepping just in time. But the elf's feint masked his true intention. A gust of wind buffeted Michael from the side, followed by a powerful kick that sent him sprawling across the forest floor. "Why are they so powerful?" Iag's voice whispered from the depths of Michael's coat pocket, voicing the question that echoed in Michael's mind. The strength of the angels wasn't solely derived from their own might. They shared an intricate connection with Raynar, their god, which bestowed upon them a portion of his power. If they were to fully harness Raynar's grace, it would allow them to temporarily emulate the prowess of a level 4 god. As Michael rose from another brutal blow, his lips curled into an unexpected smile, his laughter ringing out amidst the fierce battle. "It's been a while since I faced a challenge like this. Feels good to finally have formidable opponents," he admitted, his excitement palpable. The elven angel's taunting words only fueled the fire within Michael. "Why hesitate, god of darkness? Unleash your divine powers and draw the pantheon to us," the elf sneered, his words carrying both mockery and a hint of curiosity. The skirmish briefly halted as both sides exchanged words, a tense pause in the midst of chaos. "Surprised, rogue god? We know your reluctance to unleash your full might. The pantheon would sense you the moment you do. Wouldn't it be simpler to surrender yourself?" The elf's smirk seemed to pierce through Michael's defenses. But Michael's response was laced with defiance. "Why offer surrender over death? Let me guess, you're incapable of killing a god," he retorted, hoping to glean any information from the angel about the intricacies of god-killing. A pause hung in the air as Michael prodded the elven angel further. "Perhaps you're unaware of how to kill a god?" Michael asked with a skeptical tone. "There are far worse fates than death," the angel responded cryptically, leaving Michael to ponder the mysterious words. "Like what?" Michael pressed, his curiosity evident. The angel's response was a wicked grin, a clear indication that their intention wasn't to provide answers like Marley often did. "We're not Marley, the goddess, here to answer to your inquiries, rogue god," the angel mocked, their words carrying a mix of amusement and taunt. Anticipating another attack, Michael braced himself. However, the elven angel surprised him by pausing, appearing lost in thought as they stroked their chin. Speaking of Marley, wouldn't it be fitting to let her herself offer you a response one last time? In the midst of the tense standoff, a rustling sound caught Michael's attention. Suddenly, two armored angels emerged, dragging Marley between them. With a cold thud, they threw her to the ground at Michael's feet, causing her to emit a pained growl. Michael's heart clenched at the sight before him. Marley's once vibrant green hair was now disheveled and matted with dirt, her normally elegant robes reduced to tatters and shreds. Blood trickled from her mouth and nostrils, evidence of the brutal beating she had endured at the hands of the angels. Without hesitation, Michael squatted down to check on Marley, his expression a mix of concern and anger. Her emerald eyes met his, and despite the pain she was clearly in, a fierce determination burned within them. "Kill these bastards," Marley uttered, her voice ragged but filled with a steely resolve. Her words resonate with the very forest around them. As if responding to her call, the atmosphere shifted. The once sunlit forest began to darken, shadows lengthening and twisting as if alive. It was as though the forest itself shared Marley's anger and desire for retribution. The angels, while momentarily taken aback, quickly regained their composure. The elf angel, now grinning wider, taunted Michael with a mocking tone, "Come on, rogue god. Use your powers and make this fight interesting. Show us the darkness that resides within you." Michael's eyes, usually a vibrant blue, transformed before their very eyes. They turned pitch black, devoid of any light or emotion. As Michael prepared to unleash his powers upon the angels, a sharp pain suddenly seared through his neck. He glanced downward only to find Marley grinning at him, her hand firmly gripping a dagger that was embedded in his exposed neck. Shocked and betrayed, Michael clutched his neck as blood sprayed from the wound. Marley's unexpected act left him vulnerable, and she swiftly withdrew the dagger, striking him again. In his dire situation, Iag couldn't remain hidden any longer. The three-headed hydra burst out of Michael's pocket, perching on his shoulder. Iag's mouth opened, unleashing a powerful sonic wave that sent Marley hurtling through the air. Amidst the chaos, the elven angel sneered, "A hydra." Meanwhile, despite the life-threatening wound that was bleeding from his neck, Michael fixed his gaze on Marley. "Take him down, assholes." Marley's command echoed through the air, and the 10 angels lunged. "You shouldn't have done this," he managed to utter, his voice strained. "Take him down, assholes." Marley's command echoed through the air, and the 10 angels lunged toward Michael. Yet, at that critical moment, Cain shut his eyes tightly before snapping them open, emitting a resounding roar. His roar seemed to tear open a transient portal of teleportation around Michael, and the portal enveloped him. Before the charging angels could reach him, Michael vanished completely from sight. "What the fuck just happened?" Marley exclaimed in sheer astonishment as the Hydra unleashed its unexpected power. "You moron. Why did you lead me to him? That wasn't part of our agreement. Now we've lost him and he's going to target me as well." Marley's voice roared at the elf, her frustration evident. "The dagger you used bears a unique poison, a gift from Raynar. We may not be able to outright kill a god, but it doesn't mean we can't harm them," the angel explained with an ominous tone. Chapter 1072 The Realm of Hades. Both Sarba and Iag were unaware of Cain's teleportation ability, but in that moment, more immediate concerns took precedence over questioning him. To their astonishment, they found themselves inside a familiar location, the temple of the goddess of healing, Ava. As Michael abruptly materialized within the temple, Faith was taken aback. She rushed to his side, her worry evident in her expression. "What happened?" Faith's concern was palpable as Michael clutched his throat and collapsed, blood continuing to spurt from the wound. Faith's attention was also drawn to the three-headed hydra perched on Michael's shoulder. Iag wasted no time in explaining the urgency of the situation. "We can't waste time on explanations. Heal him," Iag urged urgently. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Faith swiftly waved her hand, and a soothing green wave emanated from her, gently enveloping the hall. As the wave passed over the patients in the temple, they all slipped into a peaceful slumber. "We need to take him to my chamber," Faith declared decisively. With another wave of her hand, an invisible force lifted Michael off the ground and guided him through the doorway. Through the threshold, he was carried into Faith's private chamber. Vidora settled on Michael's chest, their concern evident in their gaze. Faith's chamber exuded a sense of coziness, with a carved wooden statue of a woman positioned at its forefront. Flowers were carefully arranged at the feet of the statue. Throughout the room, several herbs grew in pots, emitting a soothing aroma. Glowing emerald green runes were scattered around the room, adding an enchanting touch. The space was imbued with an atmosphere of healing. His healing potion is failing to heal him, Sarba said, pointing his gaze at Michael's arm where the APD, automatic potion and pill dispenser, was built in. Faith touched Michael's blood and sensed Death healing potion in his blood. His healing potion is ineffective, Sarba remarked, his gaze fixed on the built-in APD, automatic potion and pill dispenser, on Michael's arm. Faith reached out and touched Michael's blood, sensing the presence of the healing potion within it. No, it's what keeping him. Faith's words were cut short abruptly. Iag noticed the sudden pause and followed Faith's gaze to the statue in the room, its eyes emitting a radiant emerald green glow. Is he a god? Faith directed the question at Vidora, the three-headed hydra on Michael's chest. Caught off guard by the intensity in Faith's eyes, all three heads of the hydra hesitated. Faith's unwavering determination, however, prompted a response. The longer you delay, the more you risk losing him. Faith's voice turned cold and resolute. Once again Faith pressed for an answer. Is he a god or not? This time her voice held an even deeper chill. Yes, Sarba finally admitted, despite Iag's exasperated reaction to his revelation. Idiot, Iag grumbled, but Faith paid her no mind. He is a god, yes. So he cannot die, Cain confirmed, but Faith was already busy collecting herbs around the room. My duty as a healer extends to all regardless of their status or nature, Faith declared. Despite the potential risks to her temple and colleagues, her oath to the goddess of healing compelled her to aid anyone in need. Though aiding a rogue god might jeopardize her temple and its occupants, Faith chose to prioritize her healing duty towards Michael. While a god may not die, there exist fates worse than death for them, Faith explained. Iag was taken aback by her words. That angel said something similar, Iag murmured, though Faith didn't delve into further investigation. Her focus was healing the rogue god, not unraveling mysteries. What do you mean? Cain inquired. Faith gently removed Michael's hand from his throat and placed a cloth on the wound before closing her eyes. Her hands emitted a dim green glow, transferring the energy to Michael. The glow then formed a protective layer over his wound. If a god sustains severe injuries, their soul can become temporarily trapped in Hades. The longer their body remains unhealed, the longer their soul remains in this state, Faith explained solemnly as she applied more herbs to the wound. That doesn't make sense. How is that possible? Iag voiced her confusion. Undeterred, Faith focused intently on the wound. Her devotion to goddess Ava had bestowed her with special sight, enabling her to perceive what was hidden from normal vision. He was stabbed with a blade dipped in Emperor Nagin's poison. It's incredibly rare. Who could have done this? Faith couldn't contain her question, wondering who could have inflicted such a wound. Emperor Nagins were exceedingly uncommon and potent serpents, existing alongside the realm's monsters. It was said they could devour a god's soul, a theory the gods didn't dare to test. These ancient creatures were elusive, and even the gods wouldn't seek them out for experimentation. One thing was certain. Emperor Nagin's poison had the power to corrode a god's physical body and blood to the point where their soul became trapped within Hades. That Marley, she did this, Iag hissed with a venomous tone. Once again Faith found herself taken aback, but before she could respond, Cain interjected. If a god's soul is trapped in Hades, does that mean they're considered dead? Cain's curiosity emerged. Shut up, you fool. He's not dead, and now's not the time for a history lesson, Iag snapped. No. The soul will eventually return to its body. However, what emerges from Hades might not be the same soul that entered. And such a poison is beyond the reach of anyone outside the pantheon. Faith conveyed her shock and disbelief. As far as I'm aware, Goddess Marley isn't part of the pantheon, Faith added. Faith explained, her disbelief evident. As far as I know, Goddess Marley isn't part of the pantheon, she added. She might have betrayed him to change that. Before the betrayal we were attacked by Raynar's angels. My guess is that Marley and Raynar struck a deal that required her to betray him, Cain theorized. Or maybe she was plotting against us all along, Iag retorted. Tell me more about Hades, Cain inquired, a question that almost prompted Iag to snap at him. Is this your top concern right now? Iag's voice was filled with exasperation. Both of you need to calm down. He's been through worse and always managed to prevail. This is merely a minor setback for us, Cain assured them, his words surprising even Faith. But what we need most at the moment is information. Faith, please enlighten us about Hades, Cain requested. Hearing the term Hades, Iag and Sarba's minds briefly wandered to their restaurant, coincidentally named Hades. Let me focus on healing him. This poison is corroding his body and I lack an antidote, Faith replied. What if the poison consumes his entire body? Would that permanently trap his soul in Hades? In a way, it could be seen as killing a god, Cain's chilling words further rattled Faith. It appears you're more interested in learning how to kill a god than in finding a way to save your friend. Faith's tone turned icy. For a brief moment, silence hung in the air until Cain broke it. No, his body will eventually mend. Yet it might take decades or even centuries. If his soul lingers in Hades for that long, it could twist and descend into madness. When his soul finally returns to his body, he would not be the same. However, this scenario has never occurred, Faith clarified. Cain sensed an inconsistency in Faith's explanation. He had a hunch that there was more to the story than she was letting on, so he persisted. Imagine a pantheon god injured and temporarily trapped in Hades. What steps would the pantheon take to rescue the soul? Cain probed. Temporarily dismissing Cain's question, Faith concentrated on healing Michael's body. The poison had turned his throat a ghastly purple, with countless veins pulsating beneath his skin. Only rare substances like Emperor Nagin's poison can ensnare a god's soul in Hades. This is one approach the pantheon employs to deal with rogue gods such as your friend here. However, if a pantheon god were to meet the same fate, they'd summon a soul walker and send them into Hades. The soul walker guides the soul to a specific sanctuary within Hades. What follows is largely speculation, Faith explained. What's your speculation then? Cain inquired. The most likely outcome is that this sanctuary keeps the soul intact and rational until the god's physical body is fully restored. But I lack concrete knowledge about the intricacies of Hades, aside from what's known within the pantheon, Faith sighed. If you can't fully heal his body to reunite his soul, we might need to locate one of these soul walkers you mentioned. Do you have any idea where we can find one? Sarba's words held both urgency and concern. The antidote, Faith replied. Please tell me you know where we can find this antidote? Ax, that's a question best posed to the pantheon. I can halt the poison's corrosive effects, but I can't completely heal him without the antidote, Faith replied. Please tell me you know where we can find this antidote? Iag's tone was laced with desperation. Before Faith could respond to Iag, a forceful knock echoed at the door. Lady Faith, a voice laden with fear called from outside. I'm busy at the moment, Faith replied. God Raynar's angels have arrived, the voice urgently conveyed. Upon hearing this, Iag's heart seemed to stop momentarily. Damn it, how could they have found us? Sarba growled anxiously. Perhaps it's just a coincidence, Cain speculated. Seeing the urgency in the situation, Faith swiftly directed them in a hushed tone. Quick, get under here, she whispered, waving her hand as the wooden floor beneath them creaked open. With practiced movements, she carefully placed Michael's wounded form and Vidora under the hidden compartment. She closed the door over them, her eyes locking onto Vidora's as she held a finger to her lips. Stay quiet and still, Faith whispered to Vidora, who nodded in response. Chapter 1073 A Rogue God and a Hydra. After Faith exited her chamber, leaving the Hydra in the care of the rogue god, she arrived at the Healing Hall, a sanctuary where she crossed paths with Raynar's angels. These celestial beings were an imposing sight, clad in gray armor that matched their feathery, closed wings. Their presence exuded a formidable aura, their heavy footfalls even causing the ancient walls of the Temple of Ava to tremble slightly. Can I assist you? Faith inquired, her gaze directed at the angels. Her question prompted the lead angel to remove his helmet, revealing a cascade of silver hair. The trio of angels following him moved through the hall, their helmets still on as they surveyed the unconscious patients who lay before them. How goes the healing of these people, Faith? Inquired the angel of Raynar, a trace of familiarity detectable in his voice as he addressed her. Regrettably, the numbers keep growing as more casualties arrive, a consequence of your conflict against Cronar's angels, Faith responded, her words masking her disdain for wars that inflicted suffering upon ordinary people. People should turn to God Raynar in prayer more fervently. The greater their devotion, the swifter we can bring this war to an end, the angel stated, his tone devoid of concern for the populace. To him, the people were but sources of energy for God Raynar, their well-being secondary. Many gods shared this perspective, treating their subjects as mere tools to generate faith energy. Rarely did they extend a helping hand to those in need or actively work to improve their lives and foster genuine devotion. Instead, they appointed representatives to govern and expected the populace to pray relentlessly. It's needless to remind you that most of these individuals now lie here due to shockwaves from your battles, their homes collapsing upon them. Granting them entry to the temple would be a humanitarian gesture, Rodney, Faith spoke, a hint of emotion seeping into her voice as she addressed Rodney with familiarity. We have indeed permitted entry to the temple, though not to the commoners. The temple is not a place for such riffraff to wander into. It is a sacred space, Rodney retorted with a smug chuckle. Both you and I know that nobles don't devote themselves to the gods as fervently as commoners do. Allowing only the nobility access while barring the commoners goes against the principles we stand for, Faith voiced her disapproval. Divide and conquer, Faith. God Raynar is not like your goddess Ava. Your goddess advocated unity above all else, and what did that lead to? Her own realm turned against her, banishing her. Rodney's voice dripped with arrogance and mockery directed at goddess Ava. Faith's blood simmered at Rodney's words, her temper flaring. But she maintained her composure, understanding that her anger could provoke Raynar into destroying the temple. Its destruction would leave the people without refuge, countless lives lost. However, my purpose here does not involve delving into the complexities of ruling a realm, Rodney drawled as he walked past Faith, his gaze sweeping across the hall as if searching for something. Why have you come, Rodney? Faith queried. We've detected an unusual teleportation energy within the kingdom, Faith. You know well that teleportation portals are forbidden within the kingdom. Even in times of war, we cannot allow breaches of our laws. Otherwise, what would become of our realm? A lawless land overrun by chaos, Rodney articulated slowly, encircling Faith as he spoke. Rules, as God Raynar would often say, are what set us apart from beasts, Rodney remarked. If anyone were to use a teleportation portal within my temple, I would undoubtedly be aware, Rodney. Furthermore, your search is misplaced. If portals were activated, it's more likely the doing of nobles, Faith exclaimed as a chuckle escaped Rodney's lips. Why the agitation, Faith? After all these decades, you appear unusually displeased with the nobles, Rodney noted. Times change, Rodney, and so do individuals, even angels like us, Faith replied. Rodney's smile in response to her words spoke volumes as he proceeded toward the door leading to her chamber. Well, I'm certain you have nothing to hide. Merely open the door, and if no secrets lurk within, we will leave. I have a score to settle with Croner's angels, Rodney chuckled. Yet, as Rodney drew closer to the door, a surge of unease coursed through Faith. Unbeknownst to Rodney, a rogue god lurked within that very room, accompanied by a natural-born hydra, not one bred within the confines of scholarly laboratories. A natural-born hydra in the company of a rogue god would not only astonish Rodney but potentially lead him to eliminate Faith and her entire sanctuary for harboring a rogue god. Their encounter to Rodney and his comrades. Otherwise, Rodney would have arrived prepared to confront a rogue god. Thankfully, fate favored Michael and Faith. The angels who had attacked Michael in Marlis Forest lacked the means to communicate their encounter to Rodney and his comrades. Otherwise, Rodney would have arrived prepared to confront a rogue god. That room is my private sanctum, and you possess no authority to enter, Faith responded icily, though Rodney simply laughed off her retort. Faith, I like when you get all feisty. I've seen glimpses of Goddess Ava's angels displaying such fire. Cute, I must admit. But remember, you're within Raynar's domain now. Your personal chamber is under Raynar's domain. Unless, of course, you're hiding something in there. I hate to destroy this fine craftsmanship. Rodney trailed his fingers along the door's surface, a chuckle accompanying his words. Go ahead, Faith relented, her voice carrying a hint of resignation as Rodney turned the doorknob, granting access to her personal chamber. Within the confines of the room, Vidora maintained a vigilant stance, perched atop Michael's unconscious body. Through the gaps in the weathered wooden floor, she caught sight of Rodney's entrance, his figure slowly making its way inside. The thudding of his boots reverberated against the floor, magnifying the creaking sounds beneath his weight. Goddess Ava, Rodney's voice reverberated, his gaze locking onto the statue of the goddess. He moved forward, his footsteps echoing within the confined space. A tragic fate she suffered, Rodney remarked, eyes sweeping across the room as he absorbed the somber atmosphere. With two of Rodney's angels stationed as sentinels by the door, Faith trailed after Rodney as he entered her chamber, followed closely by the remaining angel. As the scene unfolded, her heart's rhythm quickened, her gaze directed downward towards the floor concealing the rogue god and his accompanying hydra. A truly enchanting room. I always imagined your personal space to bear such an ambience, Rodney commented, his hands folded behind his back as he strolled around the room with a measured air. The wooden planks beneath his feet emitted soft creaks under his weight, drawing his attention as he stood over the precise spot above Vidora and Michael. A wry smile graced his lips, and he rapped the floor with his fingers before turning his gaze towards Faith. Allow me to ask once more, Faith. Are you hiding something? Rodney inquired, his presence looming directly above Michael and Vidora. Internal panic gripped Iag as she whispered in a hushed tone to Kane, her voice laced with urgency. Fuck it, Kane, use your teleportation again, take us out of here. Kane's response was a disheartening shake of his head. I can only use my ability once in a day. Realization of their dire situation weighed heavily upon Iag. Then we are fucked. We're about to be discovered and killed, she growled, her words laced with a mix of dread and resignation, fearing that any louder would betray their presence to the angel above. Meanwhile, in the midst of this tense standoff, Faith's thoughts raced. She couldn't ignore the potential repercussions of sheltering a rogue god. Yet, her oath to Goddess Ava, the goddess of healing, resonated deeply within her. It was her duty to tend to those in need, regardless of their origin. And even though her acquaintance with the rogue god was short, Faith couldn't bring herself to betray him. Silence speaks volumes. Rodney's voice sliced through the air as he unsheathed a silver sword, his intentions evident. With deliberate intent, Rodney crouched down, his fingers curling around the floorboard. He pressed his hand into the wood, the floor splintering as he exerted force. Rather than fumbling for a concealed latch, he tore open the floor itself. As the hidden compartment was unveiled, his eyes widened in astonishment at the sight before him. An unconscious young man shrouded in black robes, accompanied by a three-headed hydra. Well, what have we stumbled upon? Rodney's tone dripped with malevolence, his surprise palpable. His angels flanked Faith, their collective stance poised and ready. Faith found her voice amid the tense atmosphere, a mixture of desperation and conviction. He's a refugee wounded and seeking shelter, Rodney. I am merely tending to his injuries. Faith's voice resonated, a feeble defense though she knew her words held little sway in this dire moment. A refugee with an exquisite breed such as this, Rodney's grip enveloped Vidora's small form, and to his astonishment, their absence of a breed mark caught his attention. Where is your breed mark, creature? Rodney's inquiry was directed at each individual head of the Hydra, his curiosity piqued. Release us, you moron, the Hydra's white head retorted, their words laced with disdain. A rather foul-mouthed head, Rodney chuckled, his fingers guiding the Hydra through a slow rotation. Simultaneously, one of Rodney's angels approached Michael's unconscious body, hoisting it from the ground and unceremoniously dropping it onto the floor. Captain, take a look at this. A hushed voice reached Faith's ears, prompting her attention towards the angel who had flung the rogue god to the ground. Rodney advanced a few steps toward the incapacitated rogue god, his foot coming to rest atop Michael's chest, his eyes diligently scanning Vidora's form for any trace of a breed mark. Unbeknownst to Rodney, his foot pressed against the chest of a rogue god whose true identity remained concealed. Faith, could this be the secret you're safeguarding, a naturally born Hydra? Rodney inquired, under the impression that it was the three-headed Hydra Faith had striven to keep hidden. Before Faith could utter a response, Rodney's subordinate pointed urgently at Michael's neck, diverting Rodney's attention. What is it? Rodney queried. Leave him alone, you winged fuck. Iag's struggles resounded futilely against Rodney's grip. However, Rodney disregarded her protests, zeroing in on Michael's neck. It appears to be Emperor Nagin's venom, the angel's observation rippled through the room. Rodney's eyes glimmered with disbelief. The previously carefree, aloof smile that graced his features now dissolved as realization gradually dawned upon him. Yet he's alive, and that can only mean. Rodney's words lingered. A spark of realization ignited within Rodney's eyes, replacing the nonchalant smile that had once graced his features. Slowly he turned away, his gaze fixing on Faith. Faith, you are hiding a rogue god in your room, Rodney declared, the angels at his side drawing their swords in readiness. Even an angel as typically casual as Rodney wouldn't underestimate the danger posed by a rogue god, regardless of their state. As Michael lay unconscious, the angels recognized the potential danger of anyone aiding such a being, and they prepared to address it with utmost seriousness. Chapter 1074 An Angel from the Pantheon, I've always suspected you of engaging in covert activities, Faith, but this is on a whole other level. Rodney's voice conveyed shock and disbelief. A rogue god paired with a naturally born hydra. It seems Fortuna herself has graced me with her favor, Rodney exclaimed, a chuckle of disbelief escaping him. Unfortunately, Fortuna seems to have turned a blind eye to you. Not even your goddess Ava, were she to reveal herself, could shield you from the consequences now. Once Raynar finishes with all of you, the Pantheon will learn of your betrayal. Rodney's words dripped with cold intent, his focus on Faith unwavering. Leave her out of this, Sarba's voice growled, only to be met with Rodney's tightening grip on Vidora, eliciting pained growls from each of the Hydra's heads. Seize her, Rodney ordered the angel positioned behind Faith. With swift efficiency, the angel grasped Faith's wrists, her struggles proving futile against their superior strength. In matters of battle and combat, Faith and the angels of goddess Ava were no match for the formidable might of Raynar's trained warriors. While Faith's kind was dedicated to healing, Raynar's angels were honed into formidable warriors. You, my dear, are about to become a prized exhibit in Raynar's collection, Rodney mused, his gaze fixed upon Vidora. You can inflict whatever punishment you wish upon me, but spare this temple, Faith pleaded, her voice laced with desperation as the angel behind her twisted her arm, securing golden shackles around her wrists. Don't be silly, Faith. This temple is beyond salvation now. Its fate was sealed when the moment you chose to shelter a rogue god, Rodney chuckled coldly. But you are indeed a blessed one. Once I inform Raynar of this, he will personally come to flood this temple to the ground. Rodney's laughter echoed through the room, his satisfaction palpable. Yet, a sudden disturbance interrupted the scene as the room's illumination began to flicker. The angels paid little heed to the wavering torchlight until the door abruptly swung shut, sealing them within the chamber. Captain, the angel beside Rodney exclaimed, his gaze fixed on Michael's face, the purple veins that marked the effects of Emperor Nagin's poison fading from his skin. Observing the light's erratic behavior and the vanishing poison signs, Iag's grin widened. She understood that, against all odds, Ghost was awakening. What's happening? Rodney's confusion was evident. You mentioned Fortuna's favor, didn't you? Forget that. It's death that's casting its smile upon you, Iag taunted, realizing that, by some miracle, Ghost was waking up from his slumber. Out of nowhere, unfamiliar black flames consumed the rogue god, creating a blanket of darkness that Rodney had never encountered before. The angels felt an intense surge in temperature, forcing Rodney to hastily retreat from the searing heat that engulfed the rogue god. Faith's eyes widened as she sensed the Emperor Nagin's poison being consumed by the black flames, a realization that dawned on her in astonishment. Without warning, the room's lights were extinguished by an invisible force, shrouding everything in deep darkness. Yet, this darkness held an unsettling quality that Faith couldn't quite place. Now even your god's father can't save you, Sarba's voice dripped with icy certainty. Rodney responded swiftly, snapping his fingers to conjure a ball of light at his fingertips. The luminous sphere emitted an eerie blue radiance, dispersing the shadows within the room. However, the ball of light created by Rodney hovered above, casting an eerie blue glow that contended against the inky blackness. Yet, the orb's efforts to dispel the darkness were met with resistance, preventing it from fully illuminating the room. Iag's anticipation and excitement were palpable in her words. No matter how many times I've witnessed this scenario, the thrill never goes away. Meanwhile, Faith's gaze remained fixed on the unfolding spectacle, her eyes reflecting shock and disbelief. What startled Rodney even more was the sudden disappearance of the rogue god from the spot where he had lain moments ago on the floor. All at once, Rodney's eyes widened as he witnessed the rogue god materialize behind the angel stationed a couple of meters in front of him. The rogue god's smile, far from friendly, bore the predatory menace of a seasoned hunter. He's finished, Iag's comment carried a tone of finality. As Rodney watched, the rogue god seized the angel's head, and in a flash of lightning the angel's skull was obliterated. Blood and fragments of the helmet sprayed in a gruesome display. Before Rodney could even react, a searing pain erupted in his hand. Glancing at his hand, which clutched the hydra, he was met with a gruesome spray of blood gushing from his severed wrist. The shock of the moment gripped him only as the realization dawned. Faith's horror-stricken gaze was fixed on the unfolding brutality as the rogue god systematically dispatched each angel. Beyond the temple walls, deafening thunderclaps reverberated through the kingdom, while crimson lightning streaks illuminated the sky. Within the chamber, Michael unleashed his godly powers without restraint. Ah! Rodney's scream pierced the air, his surroundings crackling with lightning. The darkness obscured the nature of the bolts, leaving Rodney vulnerable to their onslaught. Amidst the chaos, Faith felt a weight land upon her shoulder. She turned to see the Hydra perched there, a silent yet significant presence. "It won't take long now," Iag's voice held a note of finality. Gradually, the darkness yielded to reveal the grim tableau. The angels that had accompanied Rodney lay strewn about the room, their bodies bearing smoking craters where lightning had struck. In the midst of this carnage, Rodney remained the sole survivor. "Raynar will hunt you down." Rodney's words trembled through the air. His smile sent shivers down Faith's spine, a chilling expression even amidst his bleeding wounds and the remnants of lightning strikes. It was the grin of an entity cloaked in malevolence. "You have it the other way around," Michael's voice rang out coldly, his finger pointing at Rodney's head. From his fingertip, a black lightning bolt shot forth, piercing Rodney's skull and swiftly ending his life. "I've got many questions, but first, won't unleashing your powers alert the Pantheon to your presence?" Iag's voice broke through the stunned silence as she directed her query to the rogue god before her. Amidst the aftermath of the chaos, Michael began to gather the fallen bodies together. "Yes, you're right. That's why we need to leave Nimbosia as soon as we're done here," Michael replied calmly, arranging the bodies and hoisting them onto his shoulder. "Sorry for this mess, Faith." Here, Michael tossed a large vial filled with colorless liquid. "Spray this around the room. I'll clean up the blood," he instructed before glancing upward. However, Faith wasn't ready to let him go without answers. "Wait," she interjected, halting Michael as he was about to depart. "Who are you?" she inquired, her voice laced with curiosity and confusion. "You'll find out soon. For now, thank you for your help and sorry for the damage to your roof." Michael's cryptic response left Faith baffled. In the blink of an eye, he shot through the roof, breaking it in the process. As Michael soared through the air, Iag raised her voice to be heard. "What actually happened back there? We thought you'd entered a place called Hades." "I was there." "It's a long story," Michael's response carried over the wind as he continued his ascent. "I'll fill you in once I've sorted out these bodies." Michael's voice reached them from the distance as he strategically placed the bodies far apart. Given that he had used lightning bolts to end their lives, Michael arranged the scene to appear as if Cronner's angels were responsible for the deaths. While not foolproof, it would serve as a diversion, occupying the Pantheon's attention while Michael devised his next move. "So, you were in Hades. What is that place exactly?" Faith mentioned it's where a god's soul goes temporarily when their physical body is harmed, Sarber inquired, observing as Michael meticulously set up the fabricated scene of the murders. "Sort of. I had some assistance while I was there," Michael responded, offering a glimpse into his otherworldly experience. "And who or what provided this assistance within Hades?" Iag inquired as she observed Michael's efficient movements, each body being meticulously arranged through his almost instantaneous teleportations. "Dagon," Michael uttered the name with a weight that seemed to resonate through the air. The mention of the ruler of Hell's name sent a shiver through the air, unsettling Vidora as they had never anticipated such an unexpected alliance with Hell's ruler. Meanwhile, a striking figure descended from the heavens somewhere else in a different part of the realm. With crimson-red wings stretched wide, the angel glided gracefully through the air, guided by streaks of red lightning that illuminated his path. His descent was a spectacle of power and beauty, a crimson comet against the night sky. As he neared the ground, the wind tousled his black hair, causing it to flutter like the wings of a raven. Clad in dark red armor adorned with intricate golden lines, he shone like a beacon in the dim light. The earth trembled beneath his feet as his landing sent ripples through the ground. His crimson wings folded neatly behind him, exuding a sense of quiet power. In a voice as cold as the wind that brushed against his armor, he uttered a single question that reverberated through the air, carrying with it a chilling edge. "Where are you, rogue god?" A sense of dread would grip many at the mere sight of this angel, for he was the chosen executor dispatched by the Pantheon to eliminate rogue gods. He hailed from one of the deadliest units under the Pantheon's command, a force renowned for its lethality. Now he launched on a relentless pursuit, his mission clear, to track down and neutralize the rogue god. Chapter 1075 Mystery of Misty Swamps. Unaware that an executor of the Pantheon was relentlessly on his trail, Michael and Vidora departed Nimbosia, their flight continuing for an hour until they touched down in a secluded forest. Once there, Michael wasted no time and procured various alchemical ingredients from the system. "Why are we stopping?" Iag's curiosity prompted her question. Before we proceed to the secret teleportation array, there's a matter we must address regarding your form. Rodney managed to uncover your true nature as a natural-born Hydra. We can't afford to have others make the same discovery, Michael explained. Finding a spot beneath a towering oak tree, Michael settled onto the dry forest floor. Vidora gracefully leaped from his shoulder and positioned themselves before him. Speaking of us, do you think we can gather more information about the Hydra's birth from experiments? Weary of merely speculating, Iag vented her frustration, her resentment stemming from the unnatural means through which her kind was created. However, the news of the existence of more Hydras kindled a glimmer of hope within her. Their last interaction with Mugasuku had conveyed that they were the final living Hydras in the universe. Now, with the revelation of the existence of others like them, Vidora felt a surge of elation. Sure. And don't worry too much about the origins of your species. The universe is expansive and shrouded in mystery. I'm confident we'll encounter other Hydras that weren't born within laboratories, Michael assured Vidora with a comforting tone. With a deft flick of his wrist, Michael summoned various ingredients onto the ground before him. Studying the components, he ignited the dark flames with a purpose. What potion are you brewing? Sarba inquired. A pill, Michael stated simply, casting the crimson-red flower into the engulfing darkness. This pill will transform you into a three-headed serpent, a common form in this realm. At least that's according to Nithrol, Michael elucidated as the alchemical process began. Michael continued to toss the ingredients into the flame, and Iag watched as the essences of the components floated above the flames, coalescing into vibrant, colorful beads. Gradually, these beads melded together, shaping themselves into three distinct crimson-red pills. Take these, Michael instructed, tossing the pills toward the open mouths of the three heads. In unison, the heads accepted the pills, their expressions contorting as they swallowed the sour concoction. Ugh, it's so. You, Iag grimaced, battling the urge to gag at the taste of the pill. Soon, the three-headed Hydra's body began to convulse, its heads transforming into identical white forms. The tiny horns on each head receded, assuming the shape of a snake. Scales disappeared from their bodies, and the small wings morphed into a snake's sleek form. In a matter of moments, the three-headed Hydra had undergone a complete metamorphosis into a three-headed snake, complete with a slender tail. How do we appear now? Sarba inquired as Michael produced a mirror and held it before the snake-like creature. Not as impressive as our original form, but not bad at all, Iag assessed, scrutinizing her new appearance. Shall we proceed? Michael asked, getting to his feet. With their wings gone, Vidora couldn't leap onto Michael's shoulder as before. Instead, he crouched down, carefully lifting the transformed Hydra and placing it onto his shoulder. Are you certain there's a teleportation array in this forest? Iag sought confirmation once more. Well, when I encountered Dagon's soul form within Hades, he mentioned hiding a teleportation portal in this forest. I have no reason to doubt his word, Michael responded, resuming his journey while relying on the waypoint marker Dagon had imprinted into his mind. I'm still confused by Dagon's willingness to help us. What does he expect in return? Sarba pondered. Isn't it clear? He wants out help in his fight against the Pantheon, Kane suggested. I believe there's more to it. Something about Dagon raises suspicion, Michael shared as he guided them through the arid woodland. Whatever his true motives, we'll soon find out, Michael asserted. Eventually, Michael and Vidora arrived at a colossal banyan tree that stood as a regal sentinel among its arboreal kin. Its expansive branches formed a grand canopy overhead. Placing his hand upon the tree as Dagon had instructed, Michael's palm began to emit a soft glow. Iag noticed a glowing rune, shaped like an eye, materialize on the top of Michael's hand. Responding to this energy, a rune resembling the one on Michael's hand illuminated on the tree, triggering the emergence of a portal. A vortex materialized within the heart of the tree. Unknown portal. What could possibly go wrong? Iag rolled her eyes with a wry grin as Michael stepped into the portal, disappearing from the forest. As Michael emerged from the portal's embrace, he found himself enveloped by a breathtaking panorama. Lush beauty stretched as far as his eyes could behold. Everywhere he turned, he was met with a tapestry of vibrant flowers, their colors painting the landscape with ethereal hues. The very air seemed to carry a delicate fragrance, each inhalation a sensory delight. Trees stood proudly, teeming with life as leaves rustled in a harmonious dance, and a symphony of bird songs filled the air with a melodious chorus. With its warm embrace, the sun cast a golden hue upon the scenery, weaving an enchanting tapestry that seemed lifted from the pages of a fantastical tale. "This doesn't look like a swamp at all," Ayag remarked, her voice tinged with awe as she surveyed the ethereal landscape that had replaced the expected marshland. The scene unfolding before Michael left him visibly taken aback, his expression mirroring his astonishment. "I'm pretty sure Dagon said the portal will lead me to the misty swamp," Michael murmured, his voice a mixture of confusion and surprise. With measured steps, he advanced along the dirt path that stretched out before him, his brow furrowed as he tried to reconcile the lush paradise around him with the swamp he had been led to anticipate. As Michael followed the path, the distant sound of voices began to grow louder. Curiosity piqued, he embarked on a slight uphill climb, ascending the terrain until he reached a vantage point. From there he could glimpse the unfolding scene below. Descending the slope, he found himself in the presence of a peculiar trio. Two young men stood facing an elderly woman, their expressions marked by agitation. One of the youths possessed a shock of blonde hair, his demeanor brimming with impatience. The other, with a shaved head, radiated a simmering frustration. The elderly woman, draped in weathered garments, met their irate stares with a calm countenance. "Why won't you tell us, huh? Where's our cousin Carmela?" The blonde-haired young man's voice was edged with exasperation, his fingers jabbing accusingly in the air. "Yeah, old woman, don't play games with us. We know she's been coming to your house." The bald man chimed in, his eyes narrowing suspiciously. The elderly woman, a weathered face marked with lines of experience and wisdom, met their accusations with an air of calm defiance. "I've told you both I have nothing to do with your cousin's disappearance. She's not been here and I've had no part in it." A tense silence hung in the air, the three figures locked in a standoff, their emotions palpable. Michael watched as the two young men exchanged incredulous glances, clearly unsatisfied with the old woman's response. "Quit lying. We've heard enough of your stories," the blonde-haired man retorted, his voice growing louder and more desperate. With an air of finality, the elderly woman folded her arms across her chest. "Believe what you will, young ones. I have no reason to deceive you." As the old woman's gaze shifted toward Michael, she beckoned to him, her finger extending like a gnarled branch. "Young man, come here," her voice carried a note of authority. With a mix of surprise and curiosity, Michael approached the trio, drawn into their midst. Michael stood before her, taking in her appearance. Despite her aged features, there was a certain vitality about her that caught his attention. She wore a collection of vibrant green garments and had tied her white hair into a neat bun. In her hands she cradled a basket brimming with an array of colorful flowers. "You look like a fine young man. Please tell them I have nothing to do with their cousin's disappearance," she implored, her voice carrying a note of sincerity. Michael regarded the old woman, her words resonating with him. Meanwhile, the blonde-haired youth among the two brothers addressed him as if he were a familiar presence. "Brother, just don't put your nose into this matter," the blonde-haired one cautioned Michael, a protective tone in his voice. "He's right, ma'am. I'm not familiar with the situation here," Michael responded, his voice tinged with a sense of detachment. For a brief moment, the old woman's gaze shifted to Vidora, who was perched on Michael's shoulder in their three-headed snake form. "Young man, sometimes you don't need to know someone to discern the truth. These brothers accuse me of abducting their cousin. But how could a frail old woman like me overpower a young woman like Carmela?" Her words were delivered with a mix of frustration and defiance, her green eyes locking onto Michael's. Michael turned to the two brothers, their expressions a mixture of concern and worry. The blonde-haired one spoke up again, a hint of accusation in his voice. "Don't be deceived by her appearance. There have been rumors in the village about her. People go missing or change after seeking her healing. Carmela mentioned meeting you before she vanished," the bald-headed brother added, his tone fraught with desperation. "But I assure you she never came to my tent. I never laid eyes on her. And as for those rumors, they are nothing but baseless accusations. Is this how I'm repaid for offering my healing to your ailing villagers?" The old woman's voice wavered between anger and sadness, her emotions raw. The blonde brother's tone softened, but his doubt remained. "Then allow us to search your tent. If there's nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about." "It's Carmela's fault, really? Ever since her brother's death, she hasn't been the same. You took advantage of her vulnerability, manipulated her." The bald-headed brother's words were filled with accusation and resentment. "I provide healing not only for physical ailments but for the mind as well. I offered counsel to help Carmela cope with her grief," the old woman explained, her voice laced with a mixture of patience and understanding. If your hands are clean, you've nothing to fear, right? Let them search your house and settle the matter, Michael suggested, a tinge of impatience coloring his words. He wished to unravel the now veered towards Michael. Her gaze held a weighty challenge, a promise of consequences to come. Mysteries of the misty swamp, not involve himself in a local dispute. Humph! The old woman's anger, previously directed at the brothers, now veered towards Michael. Her gaze held a weighty challenge, a promise of consequences to come. Would you let anyone into your house and allow them to invade your privacy? The old woman's voice held a note of challenge, catching Michael off guard. Her gaze bore into him as if assessing his response. I didn't anticipate a well-mannered young man like you to take their side. But mark my words, you'll owe me a hearty apology when you step into my tent. And believe me, that day will come sooner than you think. This place is not what it appears, she declared with an unsettling hint of amusement, sending a shiver down Michael's spine. In the blink of an eye, the old woman lifted her hand and vanished from his field of view, leaving an air of mystery and bewilderment lingering in the space she once occupied.